What's up, everyone? This is Alan Jackson, I believe, entering the courtroom. You see him right there. This is for Nick Reiner's arraignment. Welcome, everybody. This is Surviving the Survivor, the show that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime. We bring you big hearings like this one, and you are seeing, once again, the media gaggle as Alan Jackson enters the Los Angeles Superior Courthouse, and we are going to bring you everything related to this arraignment today. As you hear some chanting right there.
Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning journalist, Joel Waldman.
All right, and that's a shot. We've got a longer shot. That is A.J. Allen Jackson. I noticed in the chat, by the way, just a moment ago, and Professor Joe Patuto will be joining us. It is a busy morning. We are also dual streaming. Corey Richens at this exact same time has a preliminary hearing out of Park City, Utah, Summit County. And I'm going to, once this is over, I'm going to hop over to that. But you see Alan Jackson, and I was going to say, I'm seeing in the chat a lot of discussion. People are commenting that Alan Jackson is no longer or stepping down. I have not seen that anywhere. So STS Nation, do what you always do and let me know where you're hearing this from. If in fact you are hearing that Alan Jackson may bow out as an attorney for Nick Reiner, but just to underscore, I have not heard that. No one on the STS team has heard that. But obviously this is a very fluid story and there are always developments. So why are we here today? This is really the second time that Nick Reiner has faced a judge for 2 charges of first-degree murder with special circumstance. But this is the first time where it's going to actually count. The last time before the New Year's break was sometime around mid to late December. Nick Reiner was in this very courtroom and essentially asked for a continuance on his arraignment, saying that they were not ready to move forward yet. So there are some interesting developments along those lines. But today, apparently, they will enter some sort of plea. This is expected to be extremely quick. Like you just saw, Alan Jackson walking in. Professor Joe will join us any moment. And then on the rebound, I'm sure we will get Alan Jackson making a comment or two, although last time he said he was not going to be speaking publicly anymore. However, with a media circus this big, I'm sure he will stop to offer at least a word or two, if anything, to say that he's just not going to be speaking at all. Now, someone is saying that Harvey made a video himself about Harvey Levin, that is the founder and owner of TMZ. I have not seen it. The COE is looking into it. I'm sure we'll get more information if, in fact, Alan Jackson is planning to bow out. Again, we have not independently confirmed that here at Surviving the Survivor. We have not independently confirmed that at Surviving the Survivor. Look at this from and I'm only going off of what you guys have here. TMZ announcing right here from Camry that Alan Jackson would step down and that there would not be a plea entered today. And I'm anxiously awaiting Professor Joe, her arrival, to find out maybe it's because they're going to go after some sort of insanity deal here, some sort of insanity defense. And I don't think that would be within the wheelhouse necessarily. Not that he couldn't handle it, but maybe they're more specialized attorneys who would handle that sort of thing if that is the case. While we're talking, I'm going to go ahead and try to take a peek myself and see what if anything I can find. But we're also hearing from sources inside the courtroom that there is, in fact, a pool camera, that there will be a pool camera. However, the arraignment will not be taken live. It will be probably looped back on some sort of recording. So, Spacey, I know you're keeping an eye on that. And yeah, let's watch some of the local stations in case they play back the actual hearing. And the hearing is probably going to start any moment. And again, if they don't enter a plea, it'll probably be even quicker than if they do enter a plea. Although either way, it is going to be relatively fast. The whole deal, start to finish. Now, one of the interesting things that I was reading is that Nick Reiner apparently is now off of suicide watch. He was removed from suicide watch, and here she is. Prof. Joe explains. Hey, Joe, how are you?
I'm fine. I had trouble with the link.
Yeah, no worries. Even professors have trouble. So we just saw Alan Jackson walking in with the massive amount of media following behind him. We had a shot of him going through the magnetometer, the metal detector, the whole deal. And I'm hearing, by the way, Joe, that there is going to be a pool camera, but they're not going to air this live. We're going to get it on some sort of immediate
A little delay.
yeah. So we're keeping an eye out for that. But the big news so far, at least according to the STS chat, that I cannot confirm and I cannot deny, is that Alan Jackson, according to TMZ, according to reports from our chat, might be stepping down. Also, that they may not be entering a plea today. I have no idea. We cannot independently confirm that. I've not been able to find that. The COE is looking for it. But if, and that's a big if, that's a sign right there, a guy with the FUCK sign. There's always characters in downtown LA. But who gets up in the morning with a sign that says FUCK and carries it to Superior Court? That's what I would like to know. Who is this on shirt?
So I'm having a little trouble hearing you. Alan Jackson decided what?
According to our chat and per TMZ, he might be stepping down as
really?
For Nick Reiner. Also, we're hearing that he might not be entering a plea. I don't know if any of this is true. We have not been able to confirm it. If it is true, would you have any guesses as to why that might be happening?
The only guess I have is that he may be asking for a competency evaluation. And if that's the case, well, either way, this arraignment shouldn't be very long. But if that's the case, they'll have to adjourn to do it. There's no way you can argue about that. If he's saying his client is not competent to understand what's going on, you've got to then, confirm or not confirm.
If they're going to go after some sort of insanity defense here, some sort of deal, related to insanity, are there attorneys who sort of specifically handle that? In other words, with that, I know Alan Jackson obviously is a very savvy, seasoned defense attorney, but are there other, attorneys who are better, I guess, suited? Is that a possible reason?
Not that I know, Joel. It doesn't come up very much, so that even defense lawyers who have a very active practice don't raise it every day of the week. It's pretty unusual because it's not typically successful. But I think, but certainly there's not a bar that just handles this. There won't be enough of them to keep them, getting food on the table. I had Josh Ritter on my channel last night, and he said that he didn't think Alan Jackson had ever handled an insanity defense on the defense side, that he might have done one as a prosecutor.
If anyone has the TMZ link, and you can email it to the COE, survivingsurvivor@gmail.com. Spacey, if we can bring up the live picture, that would be fantastic. I don't know if you have up the graphic there we go. I'd like to just watch this, but there's our friend in the orange shirt with his sign, but I'd like to keep up the video if it's possible. Now, one of the other big pieces of news, and we'll get into what to expect at this arraignment, and it'll probably be over before we know it. And also, again, a reminder, we are dual streaming Corey Richin's preliminary hearing. She's going to be standing trial. There's a F Trump sign.
Yeah, and that one is, I saw it, at least a schedule for 2 days, because they're going to go through all the pretrial motions to get ready for trial. And I had looked at that one, but not really closely until the last couple of days. And I think, if anything, she may be nuttier than Donald Adelson.
Yeah.
She's got a 6-page letter that gave us, essentially looked like a script for her brother to follow. It's like, it's amazing.
Yeah, so we're gonna pivot over to that right after this. And by the way, Tim Jansen is on that. He's handling that for us. So I've got an amazing crew today between Prof. Joe Explains and obviously Tim Jansen handling Corey Richins. Now, the other big piece of news here, we'll get into the actual arraignment in just a second, is that Nick Reiner, 32, remains in custody at the Twin Towers Correctional Facility, which happens to house, I think, the largest psych hospital in Los Angeles County. But he's being held there. He was on a suicide watch, but now, according to People magazine and their quote unquote exclusive, Nick Reiner has been removed from suicide watch, where he was being required to wear that turtle jumpsuit. He remains in solitary confinement. That's interesting, just in the sense that if they're going for some sort of insanity deal or defense here, Joe, what's it tell you that he's off suicide watch?
Nothing much. I mean, you can be insane and not suicidal. I mean, presumably there are a lot of people institutionalized who fall in that category. So, I mean, they watched him for a while. I guess they don't think he's likely to do anything. He's in solitary, and I'm sure they're going to be, if not hourly, they're going to be checking on him regularly, and there shouldn't be anything in his cell that he could use to do anything. So
yeah, and I'm just so curious because of the the kind of the influx of comments saying that AJ Allen Jackson might be stepping down. I'm not seeing it anywhere. That doesn't mean anything because
where did they get that? One rumor can start and then people pick up on it, or it could be that they're really wired into something.
Yeah,
but that would certainly be a big announcement today if he's going off the case.
Yeah, and he will. I'm sure he'll offer. Obviously, you see the mic stands there. I'm sure he'll offer some comments. If you look at the glass of the office building, you can see all the media people back there, and that's a fraction of them. So they'll be hounding him on the rebound once he comes out. And then I know Space Coast and the COE are keeping tabs on local stations in Los Angeles and probably Court TV just to see if we can get showing the videos unavailable. The video that TMZ had. That's interesting. So someone saying that they got the link that Harvey Levin put out, but now that video is unavailable, which would be a big screw up. But look, TMZ, they run and gun with absolutely everything. They also pay for news. They're a different kind of entity. And if they're wrong, it wouldn't surprise me. If they're right, it wouldn't surprise me. But let's talk about the arraignment here. So it's 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances,
right?
Including the quote-unquote personal use of a knife. Now, there was also talk about the death penalty, but Nathan Hochman himself, the DA, Joe, said almost certainly that would not be.
Yeah, I'm not surprised for a lot of reasons. One, he's got a lot of signs, doesn't he?
He has tons of signs.
Yeah, I guess he figured he knew where to get the publicity today.
If anyone knows this man, I want to get him on. I want to know who wakes up, has coffee, wears an orange shirt, and goes to court like this. This is more fascinating to me than just about anything else. But go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, where was I though?
We were talking about the 2 counts of first-degree murder.
Yeah. First, in this sort of family situation, when it's not children, it's a little harder. I mean, I know in the Menendez brothers case, they did go after it. But with the other issues swirling around, whether it was some level of maybe an insanity plea or maybe the drugs were the wrong drugs and those sorts of things, that would sort of push towards not going for the death penalty. But even more than that, when you do a death penalty case, everything is tighter. The rules are applied more stringently. The jury selection becomes more difficult. And there's some argument about, how much the jury in the guilt phase is going to, finding that getting that jury is going to affect whether they're willing to impose the death sentence in the second phase. And on top of all that, California's got a moratorium on executing anybody. So if you got the procedural things, you've got the issues with regard to what Reiner may plead, and then there's no likelihood, at least in the foreseeable future, that it would be imposed anyway. It does seem to me to be pretty sensible just to take it off the table.
But this might be my favorite comment of all time right here. Joel is weird, all caps, but cute. That's what my wife says. A lot of people say that, and I take that. Thank you, Crime and Punishment. Now it looks like actually to me a little bit of a smaller media presence. It's probably just because the first time around it looks so large, but the print reporters are all sitting on those benches. All the camera people are up. The print reporters kind of just meld into the background here. So you're going to see, they're going to hound Alan Jackson for sure on the way out. And I'm sure, again, he's going to offer some words here. But as far as the actual entering of a plea or not entering of a plea, and keep in mind, TMZ was saying he's not going to enter a plea again. I am starting to think that is probably inaccurate information based on the fact that TMZ themselves apparently removed the video. But it's either going to be a guilty or a not guilty plea here. I mean, correct, Joe, or no?
Yeah, I mean, he could say not guilty by reason of insanity, but he doesn't have to do it this early. He could just say not guilty, and then they can clarify later.
Yeah. So on top of the plea and the obvious arraignment, one of the other things that we should hear about a little bit is bail and custody status. Now,
I don't think he's getting bail.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my question. I mean,
I knew where you were going, and I can't. It seems to me there is zero possibility that he's getting out before trial.
Well, that was my next. I was going to piggyback that with any sort of. I know we're dealing with special circumstance homicide, but any kind of special circumstances for the child of a celebrity that somehow he could be allowed out on some sort of confinement. But for a double murder with special circumstances, the chances are next to zero, correct?
And that's true on the law. And it's also, I think, the political atmosphere would be, I mean, the pushback if the son of a celebrity who's alleged to have committed two really brutal murders, and seems to be pretty dangerous if you believe the defense claims about maybe what drugs have done, or the fact that there might be an insanity defense, that a judge would permit him to be out, just seems to me to be. I mean, seems to me the political pushback is something they wouldn't want to go for.
Yeah, and just so you all know, this is a pool camera. This is one camera. We have no control if they're showing a guy with signs or not showing a guy with signs. It is out of our control. Again, also, the arraignment itself is not expected to stream live. It's going to be on some sort of delay, and Space Coast and the COE are monitoring local stations to make sure that we get it once it's played. Go ahead, Joe.
I don't understand why. And there was some claim that the Richens pretrial stuff might be on a delay. I don't know if they worked that out, but I really don't understand the delay. I mean, if it's going to be public anyway, the only thing I can imagine, but it wouldn't happen in an arraignment, is that there might be something that is said during the course of the hearing that the judge decides should not be heard by the public because it might make it harder to impanel a jury. And if you do it on a delay, they're able to edit it out or prevent some of it from being heard. But I can't see why that would be true of, in an arraignment. Maybe my imagination is just not good enough this morning.
I think one of the fears, typically, always across the board, is you don't want to show any jurors. But in this case, for whatever reason, there's been some sort of mandate by the court to not show Nick Reiner. And I'm not sure that the cameras inside can do that effectively if, let's say, he moves around. So I think maybe they're doing it to protect Nick Reiner, which, by the way, if that is the case, Joe Patuto, that would seem like some special treatment for a celebrity's child, don't you think?
But that one, I think, is a little more defensible. First, the defense may have asked, and I don't know whether that's true. And usually lawyers don't ask that. And secondly, the celebrity status itself may be something that warrants that treatment. I mean, generally in an arraignment, even if it's a streamed or televised one, there isn't such a high intensity interest in the defendant. In this case, since there is such a high intensity interest, it seems to me the request, if it was a request, or the decision is in line with that, if I'm clear. So that one doesn't really trouble me. Plus, a lot of these defendants, I think, want to be on camera.
Yeah. By the way, someone asked if there was a funeral, and I had read this as well. Obviously, couldn't confirm it, but there was reporting that the Reiners, not to get macabre, but the Reiners were cremated already, presumably, I would guess, laid to rest. But that's a family matter, and they're keeping that really tight-lipped. You see, over the holidays, I know there were some photos of Romy Reiner and Jake Reiner just out on the beach trying to get their lives to some sense of normalcy, which I don't think they're going to be able to do for a very long time. And Romy Reiner turned, I believe, 28 years old over the holidays. So I'm sure that was a very, very difficult birthday. And that is an understatement. Our own Josh Ritter yesterday, Joe Patuto, said that if they claim he is not competent, everything stops.
Right.
And they start the medical evaluation.
That's what I said. He said that on my program last night.
Yeah.
But that, you don't have to be a lawyer to realize that would have to happen. If the defense lawyer gets up and says, my client, I don't believe my client is sufficiently competent to understand what's going on. You can't then, how is the judge going to evaluate that? How is the prosecutor going to argue that? The only thing you can do is get a medical evaluation to either confirm it or not.
Yeah, and this is an interesting, just to piggyback off of that, Joe, this comment here. And this is just pure speculation, but MH is saying, wow, what if Nick is not buying what AJ is selling? Let's just take this hypothetical a half step further. Let's say Alan Jackson, Joe, is going to Nick Reiner and saying, look, let's go for an insanity defense. And Nick Reiner saying, look, I'm perfectly normal. And Alan Jackson doesn't think that that's the case. If you're the attorney, and you think that your client is incompetent to stand trial, where does that intersect between you and the client? The client.
Well, you've got two things there. The fact that you're not competent at the moment to go to a hearing or stand trial is a different thing from whether you've got a valid insanity defense. They're two different standards. But if you reduce that question to whether if he's advising his client to follow a particular defense path, and the client is saying no, in general, before we get to the insanity or competency issue, then a defense lawyer, certainly one who's retained and not appointed, might well say, then I need to be off because I don't see how I can give you an effective defense. But, it's a little early for that. If that's what's going on, it's a little early for that to happen, because they couldn't be in a position already to have decided that there is sufficient evidence to go for that plea. I'm sure they haven't had an expert evaluate him. They haven't looked at alternative defenses that they might make. So it's really early for them to get into I think, that sort of argument about should we go for insanity. Now, whether he's not buying what Alan Jackson is telling him more generally, and is already insisting what he wants, and Alan Jackson thinks it's not right, that could happen. That then does raise, Joel, the issue of whether he's competent to understand what's going on. Because if he's insisting to his defense lawyer, this is what we have to do, and his defense lawyer believes he's not competent to be making that decision, then the opportunity to say we need to have an evaluation before we can do anything becomes even more ripe in order to do it.
By the way, tonight we've been following the Tepe murders. If you don't know about that, it's a dentist, 37 years old, and his wife, 39, Spencer and Monique Tepe, in Columbus, Ohio. They were murdered in the early morning hours of December 30th, and it is a real whodunit, a whodunit. No one knows what is happening up to this point. We're covering that tonight at 7 with none other than Phil and Scott, as in Phil Waters and Scott Duffy. So tune in tonight at 7. And as soon as this ends, we're pivoting over to the Corey Richards trial.
I'll be interested to hear them, because that case, what strikes me about that case, if I understand the facts, is the people at the dental office within an hour or so were at the house wondering what was going on. And boy, that strikes me. Even if somebody is always on time at work and would phone in, it just seems for in an hour to decide something may be going wrong and somebody needs to run over there and check just strikes me as odd. So it'll be interesting to hear what they have to say about it.
Yeah, if you didn't catch our show last night, we had the brother-in-law. He wanted to come on Surviving the Survivor, which was neat for us because he wanted to set the record straight and knows that we have a wide reach about a 911 call about a domestic from April 15th that was being portrayed as being Monique Tepe, but it was not, and he made that clear. And then I was able to ask him a few other questions, but then the conversation pivoted last night with our three one FBI special agent and two detectives, and it was Chief Chris Anderson, who you know from the show First 48. He was very curious as to why those 911 calls happened as quickly as they did, which is what Joe is talking about. It didn't even occur to me, but this is what investigators look at. And then when he explained it, I thought it was really fascinating as well. So, and the COE, as you see here, is going to be posting a video today for those who missed it, but it's out there under the live tab. And then we'll be doing again this, followed by Corey Richins, followed by the Tepe murders at 7 p.m. So a busy day, but yours truly. I have to prove to Karm that I work hard, Joe. I feel like I'm never working hard enough, so I might have to, as Carmela would say, I should whip myself, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Psychopath, Joe Patuto. Someone in the chat here said Nick Reiner is a psychopath, and the only reason I bring that up, whether he is or he isn't, a lot of people have made up their mind in the court of public opinion, and that's something that I'm always curious about as a former reporter. I would say that the cards are stacked against Nick Reiner from the get-go here. People either think he's Looney Tunes and or a psychopath or both, and it seems like, that could play completely against him unless there is some sort of insanity defense. But what about the court of public opinion versus the court of law?
Well, the court of public opinion is basing what it knows on what's out in the public record right now. Those individuals, if they really believe that, will be vetted and couldn't serve on the jury. And so the jury should be more open. I don't want to say open-minded, but more receptive to different claims about what's going on. I mean, you've got several different theories here, right? One is that he's perfectly competent and he just decided to kill his parents because, they were taking care of him and he was offended at the idea that they were being nice to him, which sounds ridiculous, but I do think there's some people who resent, the fact that their parents are able to do it and are willing to do it. And although they take it, they're still resentful. Another theory is that, it was the drugs and that he wasn't capable of really evaluating what was going on. Another would be that he's got that mental disease and wasn't able to evaluate what he was doing or know what was wrong, the insanity defense. Another one I think they might float is involuntary intoxication if the claim is going to be that the doctors had him on meds he shouldn't have been on. And I don't know, I clearly am not a medical expert at all, but I'm assuming you can be a schizophrenic and a psychopath or an addict and a psychopath at the same time.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think all those things can be, congruent with one another. I did not even know this because there's been so much news, but COE, did I know this? And I didn't listen to you. When
Actually,
you told me?
Buzzard also, my God, things don't happen for a while and they all decide to schedule at the same time.
COE, if that is true, maybe we can clip that off the pool cam and then also put that up as a video, not to give you more work, but we'll keep an eye out for that as well. I did not realize that was a possibility today, but maybe it is. But so Joe Patuto, just back to this arraignment. Obviously, last time, and it's not always the case, but last time Nick Reiner was present. Sometimes I think they come in via video conference. So I'm assuming since he was present last time, 32-year-old Nick Reiner will be there today. He was behind sort of a like a glass divider last time, and it was very difficult to even see a snippet of him. And today,
Mhm.
I think there's particular orders to not show him. But people are going to be looking at him, at least in the courtroom, to see, does he speak? Can he respond clearly? I mean, how important is it going to be in terms of his ability to answer questions and his mannerisms, things of that nature?
Yeah. Well, at least in theory, coming in via Zoom or some other version of that uh, doesn't mean you can't follow what's going on and respond to questions. But I think what the courts are doing, and I think it's right, is to go back and say that way of handling things should be used for more certainly pro forma kinds of hearings, scheduling hearings, those sorts of things, or in emergencies. But otherwise, we're going to go back to we want the people in the courtroom, and it's partly, Joel, for the reasons you mentioned. Even when you're on on a live stream of some sort, it's not the same as being there. You don't see the whole courtroom. You can't
By the
really
way,
evaluate.
yeah, Joe, don't mean to interrupt, but I'm hearing that he was already arraigned. These according to reports coming in on social media, and that there will be a press conference moments away. So
Okay, so Alan
COE,
Jackson evidently is still on the case.
um, I don't know. I guess we're gonna find out. I don't want to say one way or another, but apparently the arraignment is already over. It happened inside the courtroom, and we are going to get some sort of, I
Yeah.
think, miniaturized version of a press conference, and then we should get the replay of the actual arraignment. Now, aside from entering a plea, where does the judge go here in terms of laying out facts of the case up to this point? Does the judge?
This is really just here's a plea, and if you're going to be incarcerated, you have a right to ask for, to be released. Very, 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 minimal stuff at an arraignment. It's only the thing that alerts the defendant that the criminal prosecution has formally begun, and we want to know what your plea is. He may have given him some instruction on other rights, but I'm not even sure he would have done that. It's really just give me your plea, and you have a right. You have a right to at least request release.
Yeah. By the way, if you appreciate the content, and it is not me, it is far from just me. It is a crew of a core crew of 4 of us, the COE, Steve Cohen, book and guest, Space Coast, who does all of this for us, which is much easier looked at than actually done behind the scenes. So huge shout out to Space Coast, who's up early too on the West Coast, and of course our mods. But if you appreciate the content, it's really simple. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe, like and subscribe. We've also got a Patreon page that helps us continue to churn out the amazing content that we're bringing you. We're going to Corey Richins once this is over. She has her preliminary hearing in Summit County, Utah. And then tonight, the Tepe murders continue with none other than Phil and Scott. And by the way, after all this time, they're going to be coming on the last Friday of every month. So it'll be Karm the first 3 Fridays of the month, followed by Phil and Scott on the 4th Friday. So we'll get the best of both worlds from that perspective. Joe Petito, there's litigating a case like this, right? And like from a legal perspective, but what is Alan Jackson with a case of this magnitude? What does he do? Thank you so much to Judy, very generous the last couple of days, and we appreciate this greatly. I'm trying to put it up there, but there we go for the super chat. I mean, what is Alan Jackson outside of the legal issues? What does he have to do with a case like this in terms of talking to the media, telling TMZ certain things?
Yeah, well, in a big case like this, part of what I think defense lawyers do, is attempt in some way or another to manage the public story that's going out. And I think we've already probably seen some of that with the leak by an informed source about the schizophrenia, which has not been confirmed by anyone. and the leak about maybe the meds that were being prescribed weren't right and they didn't get them right, which also hasn't been confirmed by anyone. Both those stories may be true, but they sound as though they may be an attempt by one side, probably the defense, to try to get out a different story or get some other picture of Nick out in the public eye. And I'm not saying that in a critical sense, because the public perception certainly does matter, at least on the periphery, and to the extent that everybody's hearing it, it may have some impact on the jury pool, and the ability to vet people who might have heard that and say that they're not influenced by it, but the defense might well worry that they can say it and mean it honestly, but it may not be entirely accurate. So he's going to be doing that, whether he's got people or a consulting group that helps him with that, or whether he and his staff believe that they're sufficiently experienced with dealing with the media and with dealing with the public that they're doing on their own. I don't know. Law firms do it either way. There is an issue when you, or a potential issue when you're dealing with an outside firm that deals with media stuff, because their view of what you need to do to handle it is very different from the view of a defense lawyer. I mean, normally you tell somebody who's got a crisis, you want crisis management, get your story out there, you want your person out there to be saying things. And the defense lawyers are saying the last thing we want is a defendant to say anything at all. So there can be a conflict with how to manage it. But I do think they're doing something like that. I'm sure, and I think Josh last night when I asked him confirmed this, that Alan Jackson has former law enforcement people working for him, and they're going to be looking at investigative leads. Mm-hmm. They're going to be, tracking down, could it have been somebody dropped a drug in Nick's glass when he was at that party? They'll start looking into statements he's made in the past, and he's made some that are going to be pretty damning on drug use. They're going to be interviewing witnesses. I don't think they will accept witness statements that the prosecutor is using. They'll be looking at whether they're constitutional claims that can be made as to how the evidence has been gathered. They're probably going to have their own experts evaluating the evidence. They're putting together that and starting those things now. And that's all independent of, let me think about, it's independent and not. I mean, these sort of investigative and other directions are out there because Alan Jackson is thinking these are the ways I might want to handle this defense. How viable are any of them? And then the investigators have to go out and talk to witnesses and evaluate the evidence and see what else might be needed. You have to figure out what experts would help or not help to get there. That's all going on now. Yeah, and that's what he's doing. He's already thinking about the legal defense, but it's, I think, much too early for him to have landed on any particular way to handle the defense.
And that's an amazing point, because a big part of this not only is the LAPD robbery homicide division and the DA investigating this, but like you just said, Alan Jackson is going to have an entire investigative team who are probably former LAPD robbery homicide, if we're being transparent here, I'm sure, at least some of them, and they're going to be investigating it to find out answers to the exact sorts of things that Joe was just saying. For instance, was he drugged, which I don't think is the case, but
I don't either. But
yeah, they've got to cover all the angles. This is this comment is just fascinating to me because of the opinions that everyone has formed, and this happens to be very eloquently written. I like this. Nick had volcanic resentment that Rob and Michelle insanely thought that they could manage him, when in fact the grizzly man eaten by the brown bears resulted in their murder. So yeah, I mean, that's an interesting take that maybe Nick thought was in it's just one line of thinking, but maybe that Nick was enraged that his parents
you can be well treated in the sense that your parents are trying to do everything for you and still at the same time be extremely resentful of it. I mean, you wouldn't think that those two feelings should be able to live together simultaneously, but I think they do.
And it's interesting here. This is coming from my eyesight's going, but it looks like the UK to me. We have nothing like this open court press. I know Nancy Pexton, who allegedly killed her sister, director Sarah Steinberg. We hear nothing. Is that the UK? I can't tell if that's Australia. And people forget the case. Joe, what about, sort of we take it for granted in America, but there is a lot of, even though it seems like court cameras are closed or shut down or turned off at times, relative to other countries, there is a lot of transparency.
Yeah, there is, and I think it's good. I mean, it's our court system, and we should be able to know what's going on and have an understanding of what's going on. And generally, the more you know about it, the more certainly the more you know about it, the more informed you are, the more you can understand what the jury will be looking at and how the jury may be approaching it. So I think it's all to the good. Now, when it's a really high publicity case, ironically, that's when the courts tend to close hearings and keep some of the documents sealed. But it's because it's so high profile that it may have an impact on being able to seat a jury that will be able to listen to the case impartially. So on the one hand, it's true they're doing it differently, but on the other hand, they're doing it differently in part because of the difference factually in the way the case is moving and what the public thinks about the case.
Do you agree with this comment here? This is another interesting one. Jackson is a professional manipulator. To be a good criminal defense attorney, is that part of what you have to be?
Yeah, I wouldn't see that's put in a negative fashion in the sense that you're trying to manipulate it sounds as though, and that the person in the chat may not have met this, but it sounds as though you're trying to manipulate to a result that you know is not right. But what a defense lawyer does, or when a prosecutor does, is to try to persuade you to a particular result. They're trying to focus you on the evidence that they think will get you as the jury to the place where they want you to be. Now, you can call that manipulating, but manipulating has a sort of a tone to it that's negative. But that's the job of a professional. No matter what the professional is, media consultants are attempting to get the story out in a way that makes it favorable. You can say they're trying to manipulate the public. But I think it's perfectly appropriate. To say he's a master at it means he's very good at putting together a case and arguing the case persuasively, and presenting it to the extent he's able to the public in a way that resonates.
Here's another interesting question, and I've got a little bit of news from the Hollywood Reporter that just broke, and I'll get to that in a second. But is it possible AJ will get him off? I think the answer to that, Joe, is no. But here is a win, getting him to a psychiatric hospital for life. Is that a win? Yeah, probably. I don't know. It wouldn't necessarily be for life. California's got some complicated rules in here. Yeah, I guess we would say yes to that. But remember, what is it? They made a movie of it. I'm trying to think who the actor was in the movie. Being institutionalized is not necessarily better than being in a prison. You would think it would be, but I don't know that there's necessarily so, and I don't know what the mental health institutions in California are for someone who's been found not guilty by reason of insanity, where he would be placed. But he's still going to be in custody, not on his own. And if he is acquitted by reason of insanity, he doesn't get out without a recommendation from the medical people. And then you have to go back to the sentencing court, and the prosecutor has the right to present evidence and his own experts to say that he shouldn't be released. So it's, it's not necessarily that you're going to get out at any particular time or earlier than you would if you were in prison. But I guess, from the defense point of view, that would be a win. And I'm guessing that from the point of view of the family, it would be a win. And this comment right here ties into the news I was just about to read. Jackson will not be paid because the Reiner will leaves everything to charity. your opinion on him. We don't know for sure that he is stepping down or not stepping down. That was some of the rumor mill that was swirling today. But the Hollywood Reporter about an hour ago released a story saying another potential factor. There is still some uncertainty about how Nick Reiner, is paying for his costly defense. Jackson, who signed on to represent Nick a day after his arrest, is one of the most prominent lawyers in the country, a savvy criminal defense attorney who previously represented Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, Karen Reed, but his services do not come cheap. The state of Reiner's finances are unknown, but a retainer on a case like this probably lands in the seven figures, with the cost of taking to trial well north of $1 million. So it's not just the legal issues, it's the how are you going to pay for this issue. And if that is true, that the Reiners have left everything to charity, and I don't know that it is, but for sure, money is a factor here. And that could be a plausible reason for why, if there was some kind of report that Alan Jackson could be stepping down. It is not corroborated. We have not corroborated. We don't know that to be the case, but money could certainly play a role, right, Joe?
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know what the will did either. Obviously, what I had seen, and I don't know that this is accurate either, was that Rob Reiner had said he wanted his children to be independent and therefore was not going to leave everything to them. But that doesn't mean he left them nothing. If I had to guess, and it's a pure guess, I would guess that he hasn't completely left them with nothing in the will. And if he's worth $200 million, which is something I saw reported yesterday, then even if he only left them a fraction each, that's certainly a lot more money than most of us have. And he also has some very wealthy friends who might be willing to kick in some money. If it's true that Rob Reiner and Michelle would not want their son to end up in prison for the rest of their life. And there's some stories out there swirling that that's what the family thinks. And I saw a report yesterday of an incarcerated felon in Texas that the Reiners sort of adopted and have kept in touch with. And he was quoted yesterday as saying, from what he knew of them, they would not want that result for their son. So if that's true, with all the money that's swirling around in other people's hands, you would think that paying for this defense would not be a problem for anyone.
And by the way, there's comments here that, and I don't know to what degree they have even any control, but Jake and Romy, the siblings, don't want to pay, don't want to use any of the money from the family to pay for this, which would not surprise me. Again, we talk about this as though it's like a fictional story, but these are real people, and again, I can't imagine what they're going through. It's got to be absolutely brutal. As we're awaiting, that's that white sheet of paper there is very important. That's how they balance all the cameras. Hence the white balance. So I'm thinking they usually do that right before something on camera is about to start. So we're probably going to get them exiting the court. Now, I've gone back through social media and have seen conflicting reports about whether the arraignment happened yet or not. Initially, they said it happened, but now we don't know. This is a camera/audio guide, just giving an audio test here. For all the camera guys who are connected there on the podium. But if you have questions for Joe, there's Sign Man again. But if you have questions for Joe, please get him in here now. I'm going to scroll to the bottom of the triple Qs and see what's going on. If for some reason, Joe Picciuto, if for some reason Alan Jackson, for whether it's financial or otherwise, says I'm done, what happens to Nick Reiner right now? What happens to this case? Well,
they have to find another lawyer, obviously. And if he's got the money, either through some independent trust and a trustee that was appointed, which wouldn't surprise me if the Reiners had something like that set up in the will. I mean, they've been supporting, from all we know, supporting him for his whole life. He's never had a job. It would not surprise me at all that they had provided for something in the will for when they were no longer around and how Nick would be taken care of. The family members might kick in, friends might kick in. Ironically, if there is nothing provided for in the will and none of the family members want anything to do with this defense and none of the friends want to come forward, then he would be technically indigent and the state would have to pick up the tab.
And Joe Patuto, this is a great question. Can't any really good defense attorney handle this case? Do you really have to pay millions for a top defense attorney?
Yeah, well, the answer to that is yes and no. There's certainly many very, very fine defense lawyers who could handle the case, but the people who are very fine and can handle cases like this often are charging a fair amount of money. But certainly you don't have to get the high-profile lawyer who's done, Harvey Weinstein and the Reed trial and has gotten a lot of name recognition. You don't need somebody with that sort of a public face of being that good. And there certainly among some of those, and maybe in Jackson himself, who would do it for a reduced fee anyway in order to get the public recognition out of it that might lead to other clients, down the track.
Someone said you get what you pay for, which is true. I'm also looking.
Yeah, but sometimes you get I don't know. You may get what you pay for, but you may pay for more than you need and get.
Yeah. And this happens a lot. People slip into saying, well, he's a kid, 32, because it's all relative. 32 suddenly to me seems very young. I'm sure, Joe, to you it seems
young in terms of chronological age, but certainly not young in the sense of
legal.
What you might think of. He's not a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
He's a man. And I think one of the things he's going to face, at least if I were on the jury, is this notion of, sure, maybe you got addicted to drugs and, I'll give you a pass on that because you shouldn't have tried them, but you tried them and you got addicted. But lots of people who are addicted don't go out and murder their mother and father.
Mm-hmm.
People with mental disease, don't go out and murder their parents. I mean, the ability to exercise control is still typically there for most of us.
Yeah. Joe, I know you're not a psychologist. That's my mom's department, but this continues to tug at my heart. It's just brutal when you think about it. But I really, the comment is, I really and truly hope Romy and Jake look after themselves. This is just so sad. What do they do, Joe? What do you think? I mean, you can really just lean on friends and go to a therapist to try to get through this. You've lost your parents.
And lean on each other. And they've got the older sister, the daughter from the first marriage. There must be extended family. Certainly there are close friends of the Reiners. I mean, she called Billy Crystal that night, considered him, I believe, an uncle. So there are lots of people to talk to and listen. They certainly can get professional help to try to get them through it. But, it's grief. They lost their parents. They lost their parents in a brutal way. And it's their brother who probably did it. I mean, I don't care who you're talking to, whether it's, you're a priest, rabbi, minister, psychologist, psychiatrist, a grief counselor, your cousin, your uncle, your siblings, and you go on and on and on. This is still a terrible thing, and it's not going to be easy to get through.
Yeah. From Rosie Burns, can you see a scenario where he's so medicated he can't speak coherently to mount a defense? I assume the judge is going to ask Nick Reiner, are you currently on medications? Do you understand what I'm saying? Will the judge ask those sorts of questions?
Right. And I don't know, Rosie Burns, I don't know enough about medication for psychiatric issues to know whether it is responsible medical treatment to give you a drug that's so potent that you aren't able to follow proceedings or understand what's going on. I mean, my layperson's instinct is that can't be right, that they've got you on such heavy drugs that you're essentially comatose in terms of being able to follow anything, but I don't know.
It is hard to believe. I think it is January 7th today, and I believe the crimes occurred on December 15th. So time waits for no one, and time is moving forward here. Right here, look at this. Mama, member for 12 months, so that went quickly. Here's an interesting question from our friend Rachel D., a Michigander living in San Diego. If he's found guilty, Joe, that's putting the cart ahead of the horse a little bit, but if he's found guilty and his parents did leave him money, is he legally entitled to it?
This is easy. No. In fact, there is a reasonable chance if they left him money directly that he might not be able to use it to fund his defense.
And I assume there's laws on the books that say if you kill somebody.
Yeah, there are, and some of this is out of my area where I know a whole lot, but I think part of it is the state law and insurance, and whether they wouldn't have to show by proof beyond a reasonable doubt that he was involved. It would be a lower standard, and they might be able to block the money going to him, even, as I say, even to pay for the defense. But certainly if he's convicted, he wouldn't get it. Now, if he's acquitted by reason of insanity, I think then he would be entitled to the money.
That's interesting. I mean, and this gets into a whole other legal set of issues, but that's
and those are all issues the jury will never hear.
Yeah. Eat the food Tina here. In my honest opinion, Nick is too dangerous to be let out ever. It certainly seems that way now. TMZ reporting, when attorney Alan Jackson appears in court Wednesday morning for Nick's arraignment, he will inform the judge he is no longer representing Nick. Fascinating. So that again,
is TMZ
that's Harvey Levin.
What?
Harvey,
yeah, and he's the person who's had the two leaks that have come out so far, the schizophrenia and maybe the bad meds.
Yeah.
So I think if that's coming from that source, then I think it has a little more weight to it.
I think Alan Jackson is friendly.
Yeah.
And here it is, right on the front page of TMZ. It says, Rob and Michelle Reiner murders. Nick Reiner's attorney withdraws from the case. Nick, this is crossed the wires 5 minutes ago. Exactly.
Okay.
Nick,
if it's coming from them, then I really do think there's weight to it because, as you say, they seem to have a relationship with Alan Jackson. And as I say, the two leaks that we know of, they reported.
It says Nick Reiner's lawyer. This is according to TMZ, everybody. So if it is incorrect, yell at them, not us. But according to TMZ, Nick Reiner's lawyer is off the case, TMZ has learned, and Nick will, at least for the time being, be represented by a public defender. Sources connected to the Reiner family with direct knowledge tell TMZ that when attorney Alan Jackson appears in court Wednesday morning for Nick's arraignment, he will inform the judge he is no longer representing Nick. One source says a public defender will step in for now and the case will be continued. Nick will not enter a plea. As for why Jackson is off the case, we're told the family will be releasing a statement as soon as the proceedings are over, and TMZ will post it. TMZ reported it is likely Nick will eventually plead not guilty by reason of insanity. He was diagnosed, this is all according to TMZ, by the way, not independently confirmed by Surviving the Survivor. He was diagnosed, they say, with a form of schizophrenia known as schizoaffective disorder. We're told his meds had sent him off the rails in the month before the murders. Jackson is coming off a huge victory in the Karen Reed trial in Boston, where she was found not guilty for allegedly killing her boyfriend. It's unclear if the public defender is a stopgap until another lawyer takes the case, or if the public defender will handle the case from this point forward. If Jackson speaks to the media after the hearing, TMZ will have it, but so will we. So screw TMZ and watch.
Well, as to whether the public defender will stay on or not, as I said before, if nobody's willing to pay, he's clearly indigent. He's never held a job in his life. I don't know that he owns anything on his own. That would mean that the public defender would stay on unless some other lawyer thinks that this is the kind of case that he or she would be willing to take on for either no or a very, very small fee, assuming that California allows a case like this to be farmed out to a private lawyer on a low fee. If you remember in the Sarah Boone case, she published a letter advertising for a lawyer to come represent her, and somebody did step forward to do it.
Yeah. There was a question just now. Does the judge need to sign off on a change of lawyer? Can the judge say, no, Mr. Jackson, you can't be released as his attorney?
Yeah, but this is very early on in the case. So it's different if the lawyer in the middle of the trial says, hey, no, I want out. The judge is not going to let you out unless there's some extraordinarily good reason. But here we're very much at the outset. And if it's the case that the client is saying, I don't want this guy, then the client has the right to pick a lawyer of his own choice. And he's saying this lawyer is not the one that I want.
And here's a question. How would he qualify for a public defender? Just because he is the son of very, very rich people doesn't necessarily make him rich, right, Joe?
Yeah.
I mean, so, do you need, I guess a different way of asking it, do you need to be indigent to qualify for a
He
public
needs to
defender?
be indigent, but it comes from an extraordinarily wealthy family, but the money is theirs, not his. And if they haven't left him anything in the will, and his family doesn't want to cover, and the friends don't want to cover, he is a 32-year-old man who has never held a job in his life. He's got no money. He was living on his father's property, rent-free. He doesn't have a house. He doesn't have a car that we know of. He has nothing. So he's indigent, even though the family is extraordinarily wealthy.
And keep in mind, at different points, he was actually homeless, living in the streets, because apparently, Rob and Michelle Reiner didn't want to help him because they wanted him to get his own help at that point. It was some tough love, but it just goes to show you what little he had, that he was actually living in the streets. But if you're just joining us off the very top of the show, we talked about this, and now it has come full circle that TMZ, not us, and look at this is harsh. I mean, look, TMZ is not garbage. You might think they're garbage, but they do break a lot of news. And I'm almost sure that Alan Jackson has a relationship with Harvey Levin. It's a big city, but not that big. AJ is representing another big case in California. Yeah, that is.
Yeah, he's representing the guy who ran over those 4 Pepperdine students and killed them all. But he was representing them before he decided to take this one on. It isn't as though that case came up and now he wants off this one. He knew then that he was going to be representing both when he took this on.
By the way, this is a great question for a different show. Steve Cohen, if you're listening, when are you going to have Dr. Ann Burgess, the living legend? We all love Ann. Maybe we can get her on about the Tepe murders to see who she thinks could be behind that if that case isn't solved by the end of the day today. We're staying on that case, and it's a real whodunit. It'd be interesting to see what kind of profile she would have for that killer. So, Steve, if you're there and we can reach out, she'd be great to add to our list of guests for tomorrow night. Again, tonight, you've got Phil and Scott coming on the show to discuss the Tepe murders at 7 p.m. Eastern time. But if you're just joining us, again, there were reports, rumors, whatever you want to call them, at the top of the show that Alan Jackson was stepping down. And then apparently TMZ took down those reports. They're the ones reporting it. And now they have re-reported it, reposted it, that Alan Jackson plans to tell the judge today during this arraignment, which is maybe why it's taking a little bit longer, that he does not want to be the attorney for Nick Reiner for whatever reason. And so we are left here wondering what is going on, because while there is a camera in the courtroom, it is not being live streamed. It's going to be brought to us on a delay. So that is the word that we're getting, that Alan Jackson is stepping down. Is it about the money? We don't know. Someone says AJ is all about the money. When you're at that level, you certainly want to get paid, but is that the real reason? Who knows? I don't think anyone except the parties involved have any idea. And we don't even know for sure that this is happening, because we're getting it all from third and fourth sources. So we will have to see.
And this is all really serious. And so I apologize for being a little facetious here, but if Alan Jackson really does withdraw, maybe one of the losers out of here will be TMZ, because they'll lose, a really good source that they had that nobody else in the media had.
Yeah, that's that's a huge possibility, but they get their information. That is for sure. Whether you love them or hate them, they do break a lot of news. Some person's not too upset to see AJ go. I hope AJ withdraws. If he does withdraw, I'm sure he's going to talk and explain. He does like to talk.
Yeah, but he won't be able to say much at all.
Yeah.
That's why they said that you'd read that the family will be giving a statement. It's much more likely that if there's any kind of real information, it will come from the family. I mean, he certainly can't say, I'm withdrawing because the defense I think we need to pursue is one that, Nick Reiner won't accept. That clearly he couldn't say. He's not going to be able to refer to anything that he talked to Nick Reiner about because that's attorney-client privilege. So his statement about, if he is withdrawing, his statement about why is going to be pretty vanilla in terms of, what happened.
And then you see this comment, misdemeanor OG is truly an OG. She's been here from the get-go. Joel, the schizophrenia diagnosis was floated allegedly by the defense team to see if that might be popular in the mainstream. There's absolutely no evidence that this is factual. The short answer, I kind of agree with you, misdemeanor, but we just don't know because no one has seen the psychiatric records. So, but I have no doubt that would Alan Jackson float that out there to see if it gets.
Yeah, and I doubt very much that if the story is attributable to him, I doubt very much that he would float a story that had no basis in fact. Now, it may be that one can contest whether what he or the defense is saying factually is the only way to evaluate it or the only information, that there's counter information. But boy, I would really doubt that he would float something for which he could not point to something that says there's a basis for this claim.
What a busy day. We're also hearing from Emmy, longtime STS watcher. We appreciate it. Ashley Buzzard hearing just happened. The COE, I think we'll try to clip that off the pool cam, and we can put that under the video tab for you all to go back and watch later on. She's probably growling at me right now for saying that, but let's see if we can get that for you as well. It's obviously a busy day. We also have Corey Richards
stream today, Joel.
Yeah, it was hard to try stream. I never even heard of that, but I guess we could attempt. I'm just looking here to see now on social media. I'm looking at Harvey Levin saying that Harvey Levin now on social is saying that Alan Jackson will abruptly withdraw, and that additionally he is saying, this is Harvey Levin of TMZ, that it looks like Nick Reiner might be looking to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. So that could be a double whammy here, Joe Patuto. Not only would Alan Jackson withdraw as attorney, but potentially also entering a not guilty plea by reason of insanity. Is that something that they could enter right now if they wanted to, or no?
Sure, but there's really no big reason to do it because they've got several different avenues to pursue, and that's one of them. There's no reason to enter that now, but they could, sure.
Yeah. So,
and I don't know that it's a big whammy because when you're looking at what the defenses are that are possibly available, there aren't very many, and that's one of them.
Yeah, not guilty by reason of insanity. Good luck with that. I mean, Joe, we've seen some of the surveillance video already from that evening, from both before and after the murders that he allegedly committed. And I don't know, it seems to me just by visual inspection that he wasn't completely out of his mind. He looked like he was walking with a purpose. It was going here and there with a purpose.
Insanity requires that you didn't understand what you were doing and you didn't know it was wrong. And if that's the case, why flee the scene? Why take a hotel room downtown when you've got apparently perfectly nice accommodation right on grounds? Why clean up the blood in the hotel room? I mean, there are all kinds of things that would counter claim that he didn't know what he did was wrong.
Yeah. Appreciate this comment very much from Carolyn. Listen to your book for your mom. It was great listening. We're working on a different book, but my mom, as if you don't know, the reason the show is called Surviving Survivor. My mother is a child Holocaust survivor, and she likes to bust my you know what. So it was a fitting title. And when we switched to true crime full time, the title worked. But the book with the same title is her story and also life advice from a person that's been through quite a bit. Could it be as simple here as AJ researching Nick's finances and finding out he couldn't afford to retain him and didn't think that AJ works for free? I don't know. I mean, I think money is always a big issue, right, Joe?
Certainly true. He doesn't have to work for free. He's a private attorney.
Yeah.
He has no obligation to take on a case for free. And as a general rule, I mean, it's not worth it. As a general rule, he has no obligation to take on a case for free.
I'm looking at some of the other comments here. Schizophrenia goes in and out in minutes, so I don't know enough about schizophrenia.
The only thing, I don't know much about it either, but I do know, and this is only from reading in several places, that typically a diagnosis comes in your late teens, maybe early 20s, not when you're 32, unless he'd been diagnosed before.
People are keeping an eye on Sign Man, giving me updates here.
He's got a jacket on. What's the temperature in LA?
It looks cold. Look at this guy. He's got a hoodie on.
I know, but I was just wondering whether they're just wimps because they've never been somewhere where there's really cold weather.
Joe Patuto, I'm going to tell you the answer to that question
right
please. Now. I'm gonna look it up right here. We've got Spacey. It's 33 degrees in Boston.
Oh, well, then they're right. Okay, I'll give them 33.
No. That's in Boston. Boston.
Sorry.
That's in Boston. Los Angeles, 57 right now.
That's quite with a hood up and everything for 57 degrees. I shouldn't be judgmental. I take it all back. Not a wimp, but just a different susceptibility to cold weather.
Yeah, here we go. Due to special circumstances, this is the COE here with this comment. Allegations of multiple murders. The LA County District Attorney's Office has not ruled out pursuing a death sentence if Nick Reiner is convicted, but they basically said they don't know that they're going to go that far.
Yeah,
that seems
I don't think they are.
Yeah.
There's an interesting public policy aspect to not imposing the death penalty or not having the death penalty. In a case where there is really, really overwhelming evidence, typically you expect a defendant to plead, get it reduced to something else. But in this case, since the defense knows that the death penalty, even if they go after it, and even if a jury were willing to impose it, it's not going to be carried out. That ability to negotiate to something lesser is really off the table, because you wouldn't expect that the prosecutor is willing to move the charges down to murder 2 or something from murder 1. I suppose it's not impossible. So that means in a situation in which it's overwhelming evidence, the death penalty is not available, that defendants would tend to go to trial. And now we've got resources being spent and time being spent and family being put through the ringer in a situation in which the result is pretty much foreordained, because there's no way to get a plea to something else.
COE, let's make let's put this in the calendar here. It looks like Ashley Buzzard. Of course, she is accused now of murdering her own daughter, 9-year-old Melody Buzzard, by shooting her in the head multiple times, which is just probably, if not the most horrific crime, certainly one of them. And it looks like her preliminary hearing has been continued to January 21st and 22nd of this month. So things always seem to get continued. But COE, let's put that in the calendar.
Another terrible case.
Horrible. For all we know, AJ agreed to step in at the beginning, so Nick had representation and never intended to take the case all the way, right? Yeah, I mean, that's possible too. I mean,
it's possible, but really, I think extremely unlikely.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be the placeholder kind of a guy.
No, doesn't.
No, but he does have this other huge case. and everyone now on social media talking about how AJ is stepping away from the trial. Some people are saying, since looks like he's going to have a public defender to quote unquote follow the money, the implication that they don't have the money. Nick Reiner doesn't have the money. Certainly the Reiners themselves do, but Nick Reiner did not have the money to be able to afford Alan Jackson. So we're going to see how all that plays out. Right now, what's going on is that there is a pool camera up in the courtroom at Superior Court in Los Angeles County. The arraignment, if he steps down as counsel, will likely be continued, I think. But then we should get a statement publicly, I would assume, from Alan Jackson, just talking about how if in fact he is stepping away, why he's stepping away. I'm sure he's going to stop at the microphones that are set up here. But right now, we are just waiting to find all of this out. If you're just joining us, it is TMZ reporting that Alan Jackson is removing himself from the Nick Reiner defense. And so that leaves a lot of questions lingering. Joe Patuto, just going back to this, is there any scenario where Alan Jackson says, I'm stepping down, here's his new attorney, public defender, so-and-so, and he still enters a plea today, or probably not?
Is there any? I didn't hear the end of that. Sorry.
Is there any circumstance where Alan Jackson steps down and a plea is entered by a different attorney today?
Well, it's not impossible that the different attorney, enters a plea of guilty to murder one, 2 counts of murder, one with special circumstances. Not impossible. The question will be, and I think the judge may want to pursue it were that to happen, whether Nick Reiner was competent to enter that plea. And they'd want to be sure of it. But sure, you can plead. You can plead without a lawyer. I mean, it's probably not in your best interest, but it's your trial. It's your life. You can plead.
Yeah, there you go. You have a right as a defendant in this country. I think you're meaning Richens. We are double streaming that COE in the chat. If you want to just let people, we have a separate link for that. And I'm going to hop over to that once this ends, which will probably happen in the near future. And Tim Jansen is anchoring that coverage of Corey Richens' preliminary hearing, which could go all day today and possibly, they always say 2 days. And
they said 2 days. Last week, 2 weeks ago, when they had their last scheduling conference, they scheduled this for 2 days. And the judge has some motions that he's got to answer in that case. And then they've got some that they're going to raise anew. They've got something, Joel, called the walk the dog letter.
Yeah.
And it was a 6-page letter that it appears that she was writing to her mother, telling her brother what to say about, the circumstances of her, of her husband, the victim, and that he, might have been taking fentanyl through gummies, and, he had a dealer maybe in Mexico. I don't remember everything in that letter, but in any event, the guards at the jail found the letter when they did I think it was a routine search of the cells. She had put it under a pillow or something. And the question is whether it's admissible. If it's admissible, it's pretty damning, I think, as to her, what appears to be trying to coach witnesses as to what they needed to say on the stand to help exculpate her.
Yeah, a lot of interesting issues there with evidence, being brought into discovery early on in that case, including search warrants and all sorts of different things that they've been arguing about. Now, this is another interesting comment. We were just talking about Ashley Buzzard, the mother accused of murdering her own daughter, and people are talking now that she is likely schizophrenic as well. So we've heard that word here with Nick Reiner, and now we're hearing it with Ashley Buzzard. So it's just tragic. I mean, I don't think there's any other way to say it. Someone here says Nick was born bad, the bad seed. Who knows? I don't know how you determine that, but he did something awful. I know that, and I have a feeling. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that Nick Reiner is regretting this? Do you think he's feeling remorseful, especially if he's I don't know, gone through some sort of withdrawal and he's sobering up. I imagine he's going to feel pretty bad about killing his two parents. But let me know what you guys think. I still hit like and watch. Always a great show. Thank you. Sign Man is still there. So Joe Patuto, now the waiting game is on here. We're waiting to see when Alan Jackson arrived at the top of the morning show.
I don't know about you, but I've been waiting since 11:30.
Yeah, 11:30. It is now. It's been an hour and 16 minutes that we've been waiting here, and we are expecting. By the way, this person said hello to an Italiana, from one Italiana to another. Joe Patuto. She became a YouTube member, so she is saying hello to you specifically. But someone here.
Who's this? Is this a media guy talking, or is it somebody from?
Can we unmute this, Spacey, for 1 minute? I'm unable to unmute.
You think he's just a bystander who's decided there's a mic, let me go talk?
He's like, I'm a lawyer. I'm a third-year law student. COE or Space, can we unmute this? I don't have the ability, guys. I'm sorry. Unless maybe he's cursing.
He just looks like he's a bystander who's decided here's a microphone.
It is not related.
Exactly.
It is not related. Who is this guy?
I don't know.
I'm fascinated by these. And this guy is in a suit and tie. COE, what's he talking about? I'm going to go to the bottom. Tell me what he's saying.
He's done.
I don't know.
Oh, he's being applauded by the other guy, so he was probably political.
Ranting. COE doesn't let me have any fun. She doesn't bring this up. She could bring this up. LA is crazy. Oh, boy. Looks like an activist.
Scientology. There used to be, and I'm much to my regret, I don't think it's there anymore, but in Hyde Park in London, there used to be Hyde Park Corner, and I think it was on Sunday. Anybody who wanted to could, you had to wait your turn, but you could get on this rock and then rant about anything. And that was before internet and before this other stuff, and people would rant. There would be a crowd that would go because it was free entertainment to just go and listen to them rant about something or other.
I would love to have an STS soapbox. Someone said he's the brother of Sign Guy.
I don't think so. He's well dressed, and the Sign Guy isn't.
Yeah. This is, to me, this stuff is always pretty. Like, if I was there right now, I'd be sending out social media clips of Scientology and Sign Guy instead of actually covering the story, and then I'd get in trouble. But look at that. The person in London says that still exists, still here.
That's it. The last time I was there, I didn't see anybody there doing anything. Well, I'm sorry, because I went and looked purposefully. Now I'm really sorry.
Yeah, well, when we go international and we do our STS reunion in London, we'll have it right there on that little soapbox.
Now the Sign Guy has discovered he can talk in the mic, and he's taking that on.
So now we're at the point of the arraignment where we're talking about, look at this. We're talking about the Sign Man. This channel has true heart, love from England. What do you guys think of the Tepe murders? I'm fascinated by that case. That is the 37-year-old dentist, Columbus, Ohio. He and his wife, Monique, 39, both murdered between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. on December 30th. That is what police say. Who did this? Who do you guys think did this, and why? You just never know what's going on behind closed doors. I'm sure we're going to get answers at some point. By the way, something I want to talk to Phil and Scott about. The police in Columbus, Ohio, have not said a word. They released some surveillance video of one guy walking down an alley. Other than that, we have not heard from them. And I tend to think if we're not hearing from police, they have their eyes on somebody. Otherwise, they'd be asking the public for help. But who do you think is behind that? Let us know. You see there in Los Angeles, the Patagonia jackets are out. It is 57 degrees. Spacey is shivering in the corner of his place as he's bringing us this video. It is ice cold in LA. And yeah, there you go. I just saw a comment here. Joel, I could have taken the stand in London. I still plan to take the soapbox stand. Look at this. Remember the town crier? We still have one where I live. Look at that. Karen Cole, a UK lawyer. I would like to meet the town crier. I'd be a good town crier.
Does he still run around with a bell, ringing a bell to let anybody know? I think that would be really, really charming if that's the way he does it or she does it.
Karen Cole, let us know if the town crier rings the bell. We could use a town crier right now to let us know what's going on inside. We certainly. How did she type that fast? I don't know, but yeah, we certainly could. On a personal note, my kids finally went back to school. Couldn't have happened sooner, and to a better dad. I was ready to, I don't know what last night. They wouldn't go to bed because they were overtired. But kids are back in school. The world is back on its axis, at least for a moment. You see them switching out microphones. Again, if you are just joining us, it is Nick Reiner's arraignment today. We are getting word per TMZ, the main media outlet reporting that Alan Jackson has stepped down, and he's making it known to the court that he is stepping down as Nick Reiner's attorney. We don't know that. We have not independently confirmed this, but that is what the reporting tells us, that he is stepping down and that apparently no plea will be entered today, but we're just waiting to get confirmation. They are supposed to replay this, by the way, after the fact. So we're also waiting for a replay of the arraignment and also for a possible quick little press conference from Alan Jackson himself, as one photographer takes a photo of his mic stand, his mic flag, which is where the letters are. I've collected some mic flags over the years, and I keep some of them right here in the studio. But everyone out here is just, nobody is tweeting from the inside. Yeah. That's what I've been looking for. If anyone has seen anything, let us know. But I have not seen any tweeting from inside, and I don't know if that's just because they're not allowing electronics inside the courtroom, but I'm going to take another look right now. Again, now Court TV is also reporting. Court TV is reporting that Alan Jackson is withdrawing from the case, as are other independent media outlets. But Court TV, obviously the one that you guys all know, they are also reporting that Alan Jackson is set to. So do we know, Joe, you had said that the hearing was over. Do we know that as a fact that the arraignment is? And I'm thinking that it's not over. I'm thinking that it is not over. That was a few reporters earlier on who said it, but I think that they were assuming that was the case from the outside. And I am not seeing anything coming from inside the courtroom at all on social media. Nothing at all. No phones in the courtroom, which is probably why we're getting absolutely no information from inside. This is interesting from 13 Mandy. Nick 100% regrets what he did, but regret is not recourse. He's mourning the loss of his drug habit. He will never get high again. I mean, maybe in prison, if he goes that route, he would. But that's a good point. I get what you're saying. And I take that as a very valid point here. On the Tepe case, maybe one of the young people he was trying to help got to stay over in the basement, then woke up in the early hours and murdered them. Just a thought. Love STS from Scotland. You know, that's an interesting perspective, because this guy Spencer Tepe was very involved in Big Brothers and Big Sisters. That came up in the conversation yesterday. That one of the detectives had worked himself as a big brother, and the father did not like that, and maybe there was some issue. Obviously, that is pure speculation, but I asked people to tell me what they thought could be the reasoning behind this horrific double murder execution style. Looks like people are coming out now.
Oh, good.
So it looks like we're going to get something momentarily. That is the Entertainment Tonight reporter, Kevin Frazier. Right there, talking to his producer. Let's see. Look at this. Joel would be the town whiner. Yes, and I would love it. Yeah. Let's see here. We're going to get some information momentarily. So stand by.
Oh, it looks like it must be over if one of the people inside reporting is now outside.
Correct. what is this comment? Very interesting guy in the suit, protester, and has charges. He goes over all the cases with the chat and his pro say it's wild. Something is happening. Love you, STS. Love you back. It's a mutual love affair. And create compassion for the impossible mess the Reiners are in. We're in. Yes, horrible, horrific, awful. It looks like this is the arraignment is over, because when you see reporters filing out, generally means some of them were upstairs, and it looks like they're coming out. So did you say he pleaded not guilty? That's what the COE just
somebody
said.
came out and said something.
Let me
Yeah,
check.
but that's it's almost unheard of that a defendant at an arraignment does anything other than plead not guilty. Sometimes they change it later to a guilty plea. Once in a while, it becomes a not guilty by reason of insanity. But almost always, the plea is not guilty at the arraignment.
There are people reporting.
They're coming out, yeah.
But there are people on social reporting, and we don't know this to be corroborated yet, but there are people reporting that he did plead not guilty. Not guilty. Whether that is true, I think we're going to find out in just a moment. Let me see here. Fox News now, Mike Ruiz, one of their big true crime reporters, also reporting that Al Jackson withdrew. The youngest son of Rob and Michelle Reiner appeared in court with a shaved head today. He wore a tan jumpsuit. Jackson spoke with Reiner before the hearing in Los Angeles Superior Court. Reiner is now represented by a public defender, and he will be arraigned on February 23rd. So it looks like the arraignment was continued to February 23rd. So again, this is now Fox News Digital reporting this. Nick Reiner's defense attorney, Alan Jackson, withdrew from his case Wednesday. The youngest son of Rob Reiner and Michelle Singer Reiner appearing in court with a shaved head and a tan jumpsuit. Jackson spoke with Reiner before the hearing in Los Angeles Superior Court. Reiner is now being represented by a public defender and will be arraigned on February 23rd. This is according to Fox News Digital. I know Mike Ruiz. He's an excellent reporter. I would not be at all surprised if this is very accurate, because he is a great reporter. And so the arraignment would be continued to February 23rd. He was charged, it goes on to say, in December with 2 counts of first-degree murder and faces a maximum sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole or even the death penalty. And there you have it, the COE echoing what I said. For once I beat the COE. Alan Jackson withdraws from the case. The arraignment rescheduled to February 23rd. This is coming an hour and a half.
True, yeah, if it's true he pled not guilty, and it's true that the arraignment is going to continue. I mean, this is part of the arraignment. If he pled, that has to be part of the arraignment. Then what has to be next is a bail hearing. I'm not so sure what else they would do, because you don't do much in arraignment. He knows he's got a right to a lawyer because they gave him the public defender right now. And they sometimes set other dates as to what's going to happen next. But not much more will happen if it's true that it's just the rest of the arraignment.
There's a gentleman named Seth Zuckerman who owns a legal consulting firm. He's a criminal defense attorney at one point out of New York City. And he spoke to Fox News Digital and said, and I quote here, and I don't think this is rocket science, but it's just good to hear it from someone who's smarter than I am. His mental health, this is a quote, his mental health and substance abuse is going to factor heavily into the defense strategy, as the defense is going to argue that he had diminished capacity or couldn't form the intent necessary for murder charges. So that's really...
Well, it would have to be not forming the intent. They don't have diminished capacity as a defense in California anymore by statute.
So, Joe, if this is in fact continued, what's going on here? What are we looking at here?
What are we seeing now?
That's a great question. I have no idea. I've seen what appears to be a red sweatshirted man in a cage-like setting, but Space Coast and the COE are on it. Spacey and COE, we just have to be aware that Jackson's probably going to come out and talk, and then we can always go back and play the arraignment. But I don't want to miss Alan Jackson either. So it's up to you guys. This is, by the way, all the pool cameras. So we're not in control. They're in control. Sometimes the pool camera, whoever it is, they'll feed back. Let's say it's ABC News, just for the sake of argument. ABC News will start feeding things back through the pool camera to ABC so that they can air it. So sometimes you'll get weird shots like a red sweatshirted man in what appears to be a caged area. There we go. Here's the arraignment from earlier.
Okay, let's hope we can hear it.
Spacey is queuing this up, I have no doubt. That is the judge, Judge Teresa McCongle. I can't really read that. This is, by the way, this again is the pool camera. It's not Spacey being frozen. It is the pool camera. We are at its behest. So Spacey and COE are working behind the scenes. I'd love to get the Alan Jackson conversation live, which is going to happen probably very soon. This is the pool camera getting ready to feed this back to whichever network they work for. So that is what we're looking at here. Bear with us for a moment. I can't make out the name of the judge. Judge McCongle? McGonigal. For her, it is just another case. The judge looking like Adele. Interesting comment. Here we go. There is some movement. We might get this now and played back to us in real time here. It might be sped up. I don't know. This, again, is the pool camera. I know Spacey and the COE are looking around just to make sure we're not missing the press conference. And if we do miss that press conference, which I don't think we will, we're going to bring that to you as well because we'll get it on a different feed.
Well, at least we're seeing the inside of the courtroom, but it's not much of an improvement since nothing's happening.
To me, it looks almost exactly like Judge Ito from 1990. What was that, 94? Yeah, we're waiting for them to feed it live. It's frozen on their end, not on ours. Apologies as I chew on an ice. Imagine if I'm hosting on CNN, I'm chewing ice cubes. That's why traditional media will fail, because you can't chew an ice cube on traditional TV. I'd be yelled at. The TVU, which is the little transponder that you see people carrying on, you used to have these big satellite trucks, and now they have these things called TVUs that are these little packs that transmit back. But a lot of times they're based off of cell service. Here we go. I think we're going to get this now in real time.
Okay. Let's hope we can hear it.
Oh, and they're going back to the seal right as I say that.
So calling People versus
Here we go.
Case number 25 CJC.
Can you hear it? I cannot.
Very low. Out of our control. Spacey will work it, though. There you see Alan Jackson.
Dealing with the 10 subpoenas that are outstanding. There are 10 current subpoenas that are outstanding. We would ask that body attachments be issued and held for each of the 10, specifically with subpoena number 4 on the list and subpoena number 10 on the list. Counsel for both of those individuals and those parties have appeared in court. They're here with us today. Mentioned we have no principled objection to an extension of time for them to comply with the subpoena, but to maintain jurisdiction, we would ask that body attachments be issued.
I don't have a list. I'd like to get a copy, and I haven't seen the proof of service, but I assume the court
Is counsel for 4 and 10 present?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm not sure which number I am.
Number 10.
I'm counsel for number 10, and we do object to issue if that would resolve the court's concerns about retaining jurisdiction. However, we see no reason, given our appearance and the fact that we are here to issue a hold of body attachment.
And counsel for number 4?
in Council Member 10's statement, I don't see the necessity for issuing a body attachment. I too will stipulate the jurisdiction without necessarily waiving any objections we ultimately may make. But given my newness to the matter, I don't see the necessity of having a court order issued against an individual in this circumstance.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Your Honor, and just to be clear, we do also reserve all of our objections.
Yes, and so, but as to the remaining numbers, that's 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8, those, the court will issue body attachment and hold it until the next court date.
And
And
thank you. We have no objection to counsel's representations, given the fact that both have graciously submitted to jurisdiction with regard to 4 and 10. We think that's appropriate.
thank you. Once again, the court will issue and hold the read 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9
Thank you.
until the next hearing date. And
Does the court have a list?
it does. The court will seal that list as well.
We've asked,
People have a copy or?
we've asked that the court seal it specifically because it is ongoing defense investigator data or evidence that we can recover or we get, or counsel on behalf of Mr. Reiner gets, and that is discoverable. We'll comply with all, or counsel will comply with all discovery obligations at that time.
Can you address the council's request to provide a copy to the people?
That's the point. We think that should not be done because that would implicate ongoing investigative efforts by the defense. And it would compromise Mr. Reiner's right to a fair trial and his right to maintain his investigation with some level of confidence or confidentiality.
But at this time, the court would just seal it until the next court hearing date. And how else would you proceed?
Your Honor, at this time, I, on behalf of Richard Jackson and Gwen, and with Mr. Reiner's understanding and consent, would ask you to withdraw as counsel of record based on the conversation that we've had in the chambers and the explanation we've provided to the court in chambers. We feel that we have no choice at this juncture but to withdraw as counsel and ask to be relieved. The Public Defender's Office has been notified. We've had conversations with them. They are here, they're staffed, they're ready to take over. My understanding is they're ready for the appointment immediately.
Really great from the Public Defender's Office, that is correct.
So the court will case, and so that firm is remained as counsel of record, and the court appoints the Public Defender's Office to represent Mr. Reiner.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, counsel, turn over any items they received.
We will absolutely comply with that. We've already begun, the mediation has been met.
Ron, there's a protective order issued by the court in place regarding the handling of discovery order that's remaining in place for now. And we'll serve a copy of that on the Public Defender's Office along with discovery.
Yes, the court orders that order.
We need from here, Mr. Bailey raises a very sage point. I'm under a protective order not to provide our discovery to anybody else. That would text providing the information only to Ms. Green in her office. Then I can be in full compliance with protective.
Anything, the people need response to that request?
No problem. I believe the protective order spells out that it covers Mr. Jackson's firm as well as any successor counsel.
Thank you.
Provide everything to Ms. Green. Back on the record in People versus Nick Reiner, case number 25 CJC F08098.
Good morning, Kimberly Green, here to ENE, Public Defender's Office, on behalf of Mr. Reiner, who is present.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor. Emmy Award-winning, representing the people of the state of California.
Thank you.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, we'd ask to over the hearing one last time to February 23rd. That date is appropriate.
That date is fine. Court.
Thank you, and I will work with Ms. Green to get her discovery prior to that date.
I'll take any waiver for you. Entitled, you have a constitutional and statutory right to speedy arraignment. Your counsel, Ms. Green from Public Defender's Office, is requesting that your arraignment be continued to February the 23rd, 2026. In this department, do you waive your right to be arraigned today so that your matter may be continued to February 23rd, 2026 for arraignment? The court finds that the defendant has made a knowing and intelligent waiver of his right to a speedy arraignment, and that his counsel of record joins in that waiver. that are set for arraignment in this department, February 23rd, 2026. They'll remain at no bail.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That one.
There you saw it. This is the pool camera. We have no control over the audio. I don't want to deflect blame. I'm just letting you guys know that that's the case. And this is now a live look back outside. So you saw the entire kit and caboodle there. That was Judge Teresa McGonigal presiding. The headline, double headline here. Alan Jackson stepping down as counsel on this case, completely withdrawing. And number two, the arraignment has been continued to February 23rd. Which is more stunning, Joe Patuto, the delay, the continuance to February 23rd, or Alan Jackson? I assume Alan Jackson.
Why don't you just guess what my answer is?
Well, let's go back to this. So it was very hard to understand. Someone made the point, for Los Angeles, you think that they would have better sound and audio. By the way, on a very serious note, and I should have said this much earlier on, this is the 1-year anniversary of, I believe it's the Palisades and Altadena fires. So our thoughts and our prayers go out to everyone who is still dealing with that a year later. And it's going to be an incredibly long haul. And that story is way overshadowing this story, just so you know, at least in the city of Los Angeles. So they're dealing with that. But back to the arraignment just now. Alan Jackson was talking about 10 outstanding subpoenas. There was a whole conversation that went on, and then it pivots. They go back to being on the record, and Alan Jackson says, and I quote, "I'd asked to withdraw as counsel on this case." He tells the judge that he had previously, prior to the hearing, spoken with his client and that he has notified the public defender. And that's when the judge steps in and says the arraignment is continued to February 23rd. What were those 10 outstanding subpoenas referencing? Do we know?
Don't know. I mean, it could be subpoenas of records, documents. I don't want to. It seems to be a little early to be subpoenaing people. So my guess it's more some of maybe the police records or things that happened already in this case. It might be. I don't know. I'm trying to think what would be in police custody and whether they'd be subpoenaing an individual or others. But it's clearly the start of their investigation in terms of what they were going to need. I thought I heard him say, and I've had a lot of trouble hearing it, based on our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said something else, and then he said he had to withdraw.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? Did I hear that correctly?
I did hear that. And
Okay.
it was just tough to make. Yeah. I mean, I did catch that. It was tough to make. I just want to say, by the way, for everyone who says that they hate TMZ and that they're never right, they're right. So give credit where credit is due. The morning started off. This arraignment was local time, 8:30, 11:30 Eastern. It is now 1:14 Eastern time. And it started off with reports from TMZ that Alan Jackson was going to step down. People said, don't believe TMZ. They're always wrong. Well, they were right. He is stepping down, and the arraignment has been continued to February 23rd. Now, if they were wrong, I'd be calling them out for being wrong as well, but you got to give credit where credit is due. So kudos to TMZ. And trust me, that's a story that everyone and their mother would like to break. So again, Harvey Levin, and very tapped in. He's been in LA for decades and knows a lot of people. So I'm not too surprised by any of that. But Joe Patuto, what does your gut instinct tell you here as to why Alan Jackson is withdrawing? Is it the root of all evil, which is money?
I don't know clearly, but if he's saying based on our conversation, that doesn't suggest that it's the money that prompted it, does it? I mean, if we heard it correctly, and that's what he alluded to as the reason for the withdrawal, that doesn't point to money.
He said,
based on the discussion they had in chambers, they had no choice. Huh.
Yeah.
How do we know what the discussion was in chambers? Because in chambers it's usually private. Do we have a bug in there that we shouldn't have?
I think Alan was saying that to the judge, that based on
excuse me.
that's what I think. But it'd be nice to be a fly on the wall.
Okay, so that suggests that they talked about this in chambers before they came out and made the public record at the arraignment.
Yeah. Amber has a theory here as to how the conversation went. AJ, I need $5 million. Nick, I don't have it. Withdrawn. That's possible. I have a feeling that this is a money issue. I don't think he would have jumped on it initially if he didn't intend to take it. And so I would not be surprised if he had if it was issues,
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it's so early for it to be something else because they're at way too early a stage to have locked on a particular defense theory or anything. So, it's just hard to imagine what it was if it was based on a Now, did he mean it? We should ask whoever was in a position to hear better. Was it based on a conversation that they had in chambers as compared to based on a conversation with Nick? Does anybody know which?
Say that again. Was it based on a conversation with Nick? Is that what you're asking?
The commentator who said it was a discussion in chambers. When Alan Jackson out in the public at the hearing, the formal part of it, said based on our conversation. I didn't hear the rest of it. It could have been, he said, based on our conversation in chambers, which would not necessarily have been a conversation with Nick.
Okay.
I thought the first time that he was referring to a conversation with his client that led him to withdraw. Maybe it was a conversation that he had in chambers. And Italiana has actually a pretty good guess there.
Yeah.
That he may have already discovered that he is unable to represent Nick because he's unable to have any kind of a relationship with Nick. That
Yeah.
He's got a client who is being an obstructionist, and he said in chambers, there's no way I can proceed because he's not willing to work with me, and I've tried everything.
That's an excellent point. Italiana writing here, Nick sounded like he had an attitude to me. I couldn't really hear the audio was poor.
I couldn't either.
I'm sure the COE will get some cleaned up audio with the help of Spacey, and they'll repost it, and we'll repost it. There's Matt Gutman. If you're TV watchers, he usually hosts 2020, leaning against the pillar there, but he has just moved to CBS News. But he's now a big gun at CBS News. But here's another comment, and this could very well be true, piggybacking off of Italiana right here. He got fired. We don't know, but maybe Nick Reiner said, I don't want this guy as my attorney.
Yeah, which is what I said earlier. Nick could have said, I don't want you.
Yeah.
But that anticipates, that has to be based on no challenge to his competence to make a decision like that. Because if he's really not competent to follow anything, he's not in a position to fire either.
Sherry Schreiber saying right here, has nothing to do with money. Maybe you are right. We all could be right. We all could be wrong. Some of us could be right. Some of us could be wrong. I have a feeling that this might be part of the equation. Nick probably got mad at him. I don't even know if it's that he got mad at him. Maybe he's just such a difficult personality. Listen, I don't think he's probably the easiest guy to deal with under any circumstances, particularly if, let's say, he's going through a detox, particularly if he's got we don't really know his feelings towards his family or his parents, but obviously he has some pent up rage. I think that's safe to say, that was eventually let go. And so maybe he's just an incredibly difficult client. Right now, we're waiting for Alan Jackson to come out, and hopefully he'll debrief us a little bit. Now, I'd be curious, Joe, if he was outwardly or outrightly fired, let's say, by Nick Reiner. I'm just curious to see how Alan Jackson would present that to the public.
He's somebody who's not afraid of the mic, but I wouldn't be surprised if he refused to talk about it at all, actually.
He might.
We'll see what happens. Nick, from all descriptions of his interactions with his parents, it had to be his way. And if that's the way he led his life, or they in some ways permitted him to lead his life. And I don't want to be critical of them, but if they, when he decided to start having, for want of a better word, a tantrum, they just gave in, then he may have a pattern of, when I want something, whoever it is on the other side had better agree, or I'm either walking or, severing the contact. And that would support the idea that Italiana suggested originally, that he decided he did not want Alan Jackson. And the lawyer can't have a relationship with a client who's saying, okay, here we are. This is what I want to do. And you have to know that what you're going to do from here on out, it was what I want and not what you think is best for the defense.
Yeah. I have to go back and listen to this, and we're going to post it under the video tab. So you will have hopefully a better sounding arraignment. Which was, again, not an arraignment. The arraignment is actually continued.
Well, it's continued. That means they started it. They didn't finish it.
Okay. Well, I'm being corrected by the law professor. So yeah, the beginning of an arraignment that will be continued to February 23rd. Alan Jackson simply stating he had no choice.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like money.
Probably Nick not in agreement. He said, and here's a direct quote from the COE. Based on a conversation we had in chambers and the explanation I gave in chambers, we feel we have no choice at this juncture but to withdraw.
Okay, so it was not a conversation with Nick, but he's talking about the conversation he had in chambers in front of the judge. That really does sound as though he is saying that he found it impossible to deal with his client. Remember, this was Sarah Boone's issue with her lawyers. Remember how many of them withdrew because they said there's no way we can represent her because
she was on 9 or 10, and finally she got a private attorney after she wrote.
But their reasons each time was, we cannot represent her effectively because she will not listen. She knows what she wants to do. We do not think it's the right way to go. And we're finding it impossible to have any kind of relationship that would allow us to represent her.
Yeah. By the way, there are a lot of new people here. We are Surviving the Survivor. My mother's a child Holocaust survivor, hence the name. And she likes to, She gives me a hard time. But we do a live panel show every night of the week, Monday through Thursday, Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern. And we cover the biggest cases going on in the country right now. Tonight at 7 p.m., we're covering the Tepe murders out of Columbus, Ohio, where a 37-year-old dentist and his wife were gunned down execution style. Their 2 kids and their golden doodle left alone. It is a whodunit, and we have, criminal profilers, detectives, former FBI agents, retired FBI agents. We've got professors like Joe Pacciuto on. She has her own channel, Prof. Joe Explains, but we are on every night of the week, and then we bring you big trials, big hearings. Some people were asking the Paul Canero trial, which is New Jersey's most anticipated trial. Jury selection is supposed to go on for weeks. So next week, we are planning to bring you the au pair trial out of Virginia. That is where a husband and an au pair basically lured the wife and an unsuspecting person into the house, and they were murdered, and he is going on trial next week. We're going to bring you that trial. I'm almost sure that is the one we are bringing you here. We are waiting. And by the way, Corey Richins out of Utah, accused of murdering her husband with 5 times a lethal dose of fentanyl. There's a preliminary hearing that Tim Jansen is covering for us on a second channel. You can, I think we'll redirect you. I'll get directions from the COE about that after this. But right now, the big headline is Alan Jackson has withdrawn as criminal defense attorney for Nick Reiner, and the arraignment for Nick Reiner has been continued to February 23rd. So this is the second attempt at an arraignment for Nick Reiner. It is being continued again. But the bigger headline, Alan Jackson is stepping down. And right now you're looking outside the LA County Superior Court, where we are awaiting a bit of a press conference we're expecting with Alan Jackson to hopefully explain, at least to some degree, why he is stepping down as an attorney for Nick Reiner. Joe Pacciuto, I imagine he's going to be and this is probably why it's taking him this long to come down. I don't think he wants to come out and say this guy's impossible to work with. I don't think he wants to say this guy couldn't afford, whatever the circumstance is.
That's why I think he may just say no comment, even though it's so out of character for him.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to do that, but
okay, we'll see. You're the person with the journalism chops. I just had an undergraduate degree in it.
I think he's going to say. I think he's going to state it much more eloquently than I could. But I think he's taken a moment or two to try to figure out how to say it publicly.
Well, why would he have to do that? He knew he was going to do this when he got there this morning. He could have written it last night.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess. I mean, do you think that anything changed while he was in chambers this morning?
I can't imagine what. He wouldn't have had much contact with Nick this morning. Nick would have had to be brought over from the jail. So, I suppose they could have had a little contact, but it couldn't have been much.
Joe,
and I can't imagine that Nick all of a sudden became intractable and impossible to deal with at 10:30 this morning, and it hadn't happened in the other times that he visited with him.
Yeah. Here's a question you must get all the time as a law professor. If you're the defense attorney and your client confesses the crime to you, are you obligated to tell on him, or is that confession considered privilege? Joe?
That's more complicated than that question suggests. You are entitled to represent a guilty client. You do not have to state on the record that he's guilty. He can maintain a not guilty plea and you can defend, but you are not, he couldn't possibly testify in that case. You couldn't participate in the testimony, and you couldn't do anything in the defense that made it a definite fraud on the court. So it would be a really tricky line. And what would be most likely is the lawyer in that case would want to withdraw to get out of that bind.
Yeah. And
but again, it doesn't usually have, there's a book that was made into a movie about a soldier, and I think he was in Germany, and his wife was killed. And it's a famous speech that the defense lawyer gives in that book. And what he does is he says, I'm going to be representing you, but before you say anything to me about what happened, I want to explain the law to you. If you took a gun and with intent pointed it at her head and killed her, that would be murder. If you didn't mean to kill her, the gun went off by itself, it would be an accident. So he goes through all the different permutations of the law and then says, okay, now tell me what happened. And that speech avoids getting into the box of knowing your client is guilty of something, because you've already explained to your client what you can hear, what you can
Here we go.
Hear, and what you'll have to do. Here he is.
This is Alan Jackson.
You're right. He's going up to the mic.
The audio is here we go.
Good morning. As you know, my name is Alan Jackson. This morning, I had to withdraw as Nick Reiner's counsel. Circumstances beyond our control, but more importantly, circumstances beyond Nick's control have dictated that, sadly, it's made it impossible for us to continue our representation of Nick. I'm legally and I'm ethically prohibited from explaining all the reasons why. I know that's a question on everybody's mind. We expect the public defender to step in. They've already been appointed and very capably protect Nick Reiner's interests as he moves forward through the system. But be clear, be very, very clear about this. My team and I remain deeply, deeply committed to Nick Reiner and to his best interests. In fact, we know, we're not just convinced, we know that the legal process will reveal the true facts of the circumstances surrounding this case, Nick's case. A lot's been printed of late, over the last 3 weeks. A lot has been printed about Nick, printed about his family, printed about the circumstances, speculation is in print. On December 15th, in the early morning hours, I was in New York at the time, and I got a call. Me and my team, we dropped everything. And for the last 3 weeks, we've devoted literally every waking hour to protecting Nick and his interests. We've investigated this matter top to bottom, back to front. What we've learned, and you can take this to the bank, is that pursuant to the laws of this state, pursuant to the law in California, Nick Reiner is not guilty of murder. Print that. Print that. We wish him the very, very best moving forward. And that's all I have today.
So maybe it is money.
Interesting. I was thinking the exact opposite, actually.
What were you thinking?
I was thinking that he's just too difficult to work with, and that that's interesting. I'm thinking that he's just too difficult to work with, and that the mental health aspect, that he was just not in his right mind. This is what I'm thinking, and it's.
So you think when he says more importantly it was out of Nick's control, he means Nick is so crazy?
That was my read on it.
Okay,
That
could
my
be.
read is
Could be.
yeah. My read for sure is that he was. Let's just go back through this real quick. So obviously Alan Jackson, who has withdrawn, comes out. This is now almost 2 hours and 2 minutes on the dot from when Alan Jackson walked into the courtroom, and the arraignment was continued. So he says, of course, many of you know I'm Alan Jackson. This morning I had to withdraw. Circumstances beyond our and Nick's control. These are circumstances beyond our and Nick's control. It made it sadly impossible to defend Nick. These are all Alan Jackson's words, by the way. Legally and ethically, I am not allowed to go into any of the details. The public defender has now been assigned to him. We'll take him through the legal process. And he says, my team remains committed to Nick Reiner's defense wholeheartedly. And then Alan Jackson says true facts will be revealed. Now, one thing that Alan Jackson certainly is engaging. And then he sort of stopped, Joe, and he says, over the last few weeks, a lot has been printed about Nick, about his family, about
Ricardo Garcia.
Let's see who this
Ricardo
is.
Garcia, Los Angeles County Public Defender. I'm here with Kimberly Green, the Deputy Public Defender assigned to the Reiner case. I want to say that on behalf of the entire Public Defender's Office, we are incredibly sorry and understand the pain and suffering that the Reiner family is going through at this time, as well as the entire Los Angeles community. The Public Defender's Office and the entire staff, our hearts at this time go out to the entire family. We hope that the community will also understand that this is a challenging time for the entire legal process. We ask for your patience, your understanding as we navigate this process through the legal system, and that we will be available as we can be to address your questions when appropriate. Thank you. We learned, I believe, last night or yesterday that we were being substituted in. I'm going to let Ms. Green answer that.
Briefly this morning, but we haven't had a chance to discuss anything. I spoke to Mr. Reiner briefly this morning. He was understanding that there was going to be a change in counsel. We haven't had any in-depth conversations. I have not. We'll discuss that with Mr. Reiner and see how to proceed. Not at all. It's not uncommon for private counsel to turn over cases to us, so no, nothing about that would complicate the situation. I have talked to him for only 30 seconds, so I have no idea. I only spoke to Mr. Reiner for about 30 seconds this morning. I have no comment about it. I have not. We've had no contact with the family. I don't think they were aware that this was going on until this morning.
At this point in time, Ms. Green will look into the case. We'll speak with Mr. Reiner. And if you have any further questions, reach out to our media team. once we have more information ourselves. This just happened today, and my understanding is he was aware of it. Ms. Green spoke with him, as you heard, and as soon as we have more information that we can share, we will share it.
Thank you. No further questions at this time. Thank you. You can direct any further questions to our media. Green with an E at the end.
Okay, so those were the public defenders there. Let's leave this
I'm
picture.
back to thinking maybe it was the money because they sounded as though they're going to be on it for the duration, didn't they?
Yeah, different theories. Someone just said up here, I was trying to click on this, Nick fired him. Out of Nick's control, the money. So people are thinking the money, and it very well could be. It could also be they're not mutually exclusive. It could be the money and the fact that he's an incredibly difficult client.
Right.
We just don't know. But let me go back to what Alan Jackson had to say, and let's keep this up because we don't know who else or someone else. Here's Nathan Hochman coming up, the district attorney for Los Angeles County. Here we go.
Good morning. My name is Nathan Hochman. I'm the district attorney of Los Angeles County. With me is Habib Balian. He is the assistant head deputy of major crimes. He will be prosecuting this case. I'm here to make 3 points, and then I will not be taking questions afterwards. In our criminal justice system, every defendant is entitled to a lawyer who will zealously represent their interests and do so effectively. So too is Nick Reiner, whether it's Alan Jackson, someone from the public defender's office, or any lawyer. He's entitled to that lawyer, and we'll make sure he gets that lawyer. Second point, in the process of dealing with that lawyer, we will make sure, the DA's office will make sure, that lawyer is provided with full discovery of all the facts that pertain to this particular situation, whether it's interviews, whether it's any type of video, whether it's any type of expert reports. We'll make sure that that lawyer gets the facts necessary to effectively represent their client in a court of law. And third point, we are fully confident that a jury will convict Nick Reiner beyond a reasonable doubt of the brutal murders of his parents, Rob Reiner and Michelle Singer Reiner, and do so unanimously. Thank you very much.
So Alan Jackson said, take this to the bank. He did not commit murder. And now the DA says we're going to convict him beyond a reasonable doubt of on both these counts.
Yeah, this is fascinating because they're essentially now litigating this in the public before the media, each taking shots with the public defenders caught in the middle. So let's just break this down and go back a moment in time to when Alan Jackson came out. It was 2 hours and 2 minutes after the arraignment was set to start this morning, and that arraignment has now been continued to February 23rd. Now, Alan Jackson, again, just because we're sort of starting from scratch here, he came out in front of the media and said, this morning I had to withdraw as attorney for Nick Reiner. The circumstances were beyond our and Nick's control. This is why people like Joe and others who are smarter than me think quite possibly it is a money issue. It made it sadly impossible to defend Nick, is what Alan Jackson said. And then he went on to say, legally and ethically, I am not allowed to go into details about this. He then said that the public defender, who we just heard from, will take him through the process, through the legal process. And you're looking at a photo of Nick there on the left and Rob and Michelle Singer Reiner on the right. He says that the public defender is going to take him through the process, Joe, and then went on to say that my team remains committed to Nick Reiner's defense, even though he's not defending him. And he says true facts, not opinions, but he says true facts will be revealed. And then Alan Jackson went into sort of Alan Jackson mode, which is he's a showman, excellent attorney, but a showman as well. You notice the difference in suits between the public defender and Alan Jackson. Well, Alan Jackson is a high-paid criminal defense attorney, and he said a lot has been printed about Nick, about the family, about the circumstances, about speculation. And he says on December 15th, when this crime occurred, or the deaths occurred, he says, I was in New York City. He said, me and my team, we dropped everything. We have investigated this from top to bottom, back to front, every waking moment. So he's got a penchant for the dramatic. He says every waking moment since December 15th. And he says what we've learned, and you can take this to the bank, he said, pursuant to California laws, Nick Reiner is not guilty of murder. Print that. Print that. Joe Patuto, translate this for us from English to English.
Well, I thought it was in English to begin with.
I think it was.
Here are the questions I have about that. That was he was contacted the night of the day of the killing. Is that right? Is that what he said?
Yes, December 15th, the night of.
So then whoever made contact with him had to know how to find him. I mean, if I had enough money and I wanted Alan Jackson to represent me, it would take me a little while to figure out with whom to get in touch in order to get in touch and find out where he was going to be and get to him. So that suggests that somebody, among this high-powered group, somebody who is relatively well-placed and able to at least reach out to someone who could reach out to Alan Jackson. That sounds as though it has to be a friend of the family or a family member, or maybe a trustee on something, or, that's what it sounds like. It sounds as though the person or persons who reached out to him fully expected that he was going to be paid. Otherwise, why would they do it at all? And so to come 3 weeks later, if it's the money, to now find out that he's not going to be paid seems it's hard to connect the dots there. If it's not the money, if somebody or somebodies were still willing to pay, then it has to be Nick's behavior and his inability to work with at least Alan Jackson. I don't know that there's another alternative out there. And then his comment that it's out of Nick's control, Joel, maybe what you had said, that he's too crazed or too egocentric or too, you name it, to be able to see what is or be able to even be willing to listen to a lawyer, well-placed lawyer, a smart lawyer, an experienced lawyer, even to be willing to listen to that person as he maps out, this is what we have to do, and this might be the defense. I don't know if somebody in the chat or you, Joel, has another alternative here. I'd love to hear it, but those are the two alternatives I see. And the first one, although I said it sounded like it had to be the money, if he's it's hard to square with someone well-placed reaching out to him and saying, will you defend him? He drops everything to go back. I can't imagine that somebody's going to reach out who didn't think there was going to be money to pay for this defense.
Yeah, I'm just taking in all the comments. Someone here saying, Joe, if you want to comment, they're talking about Alan Jackson. How can he do that before a trial? Outrageous. On the flip side, just to be fair, DA Nathan Hochman said that he will be convicted beyond a reasonable doubt. So on the one hand, the district attorney saying, look, this guy's going to be convicted, and the no longer criminal defense attorney for Nick Reiner, Alan Jackson, saying, take it to the bank, he will be acquitted of these charges, that he will not be found guilty. Now,
well, he didn't say he wouldn't be found. He didn't say he'd be acquitted. He said he's not
guilty of murder.
Yeah, I forget how he put it, which sounded as though.
Yeah, it was that. He said it.
Well, you're right. Acquitted would do it also. It sounds as though he thinks that Nick was either legally insane or couldn't have, because of drugs or involuntary intoxication, the meds did it, something like that, because it can't be self-defense. It can't be somebody else did it. So now you're into the insanity or the drugs as the reason that says he couldn't have done the crime, unless somebody can think of another alternative, but I can't think of one. And the person who said it's outrageous for him to withdraw, he's withdrawing really early on.
No, not outrageous to withdraw, that it was outrageous for him to say that he will be basically found not guilty.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
It was the comment that
okay.
How could a defense attorney get up there in a court of public opinion in front of the entire world media and say because people are going to see this and say, oh, the defense attorney said he's not guilty, so we're going to vote not guilty.
Well, and
But
that's exactly what he was trying to do.
yeah, I think that is exactly what he's trying to do. Here are my 2 cents, and please don't take them for more than they're worth, which is 2 cents. But I have a feeling it's a combination. I have a feeling it's a money issue that Nick probably doesn't have access to the money necessary to pay a guy like Alan Jackson. But I also think he's probably an impossible client to deal with. That's my gut instinct. And I have the feeling that Alan Jackson, and I mean this in a very sort of complimentary way. I think he's very controlling as a criminal defense attorney. I think he wants to be in charge, and maybe Nick didn't want him to be in charge as much as Alan Jackson needs to be in charge in his own eyes. And so there was some sort of conflict because, truthfully, this is such a high profile case that I don't know that Alan Jackson needs the money as much as he would love the media attention that goes along with this. And again, I'm not saying that in a pejorative way. You're a criminal defense attorney, and this is the biggest criminal case in the country. You're going to want to have it. So I don't know that it's just money. Am I crazy there, Joe?
Let me ask. I think you were righter the first time, actually, because I'm still stuck by somebody who had the authority to speak for, if not Nick Reiner, the family, and has the wherewithal to be able to find Alan Jackson in New York the day of the murder, tells him, we want you to take the case. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dropped everything, flown back to California. He's got to be operating under the theory for that next 3 weeks that he's being paid by someone with the ability to pay. Right? I mean, I couldn't call Alan Jackson and say, gee, Nick Reiner needs help. Will you go defend him? I can't make that claim for Nick Reiner. It has to be someone who has the authority to speak for Nick. Nick may not want them to speak for him, but at least at the outset has the authority to speak for him to get Alan Jackson to take on the case. That's why I think the more I think about it, the more I think it's not the money.
Yeah.
Because what are they going to do after 3 weeks saying, hey, we thought about it. Now we don't want him to have a defense. It just doesn't seem to ring right.
My absolute gut instinct, the second he was done, was that it was him as a client making it, maybe he's not even, we just don't know. Maybe he's just not.
And I think you were right, because otherwise you can't. And if somebody in the chat can do it, you can't explain Alan Jackson, assuming he's telling the truth, that he's being called, that he goes back, which sounds as though the person has the authority to retain him or have him take on the case. And then he's on it for 3 weeks. And then that person or that group of people change their mind. It just doesn't, for me, it doesn't compute, which is why I think your initial instinct may be the right one, that he is unable to work with Nick Reiner. Now, whether somebody in the public defender's office is going to be able to do it is another question. I mean, Sarah Boone went through, you said 10, it might have even been more, because she wanted to be in control of the defense and she didn't want to hear any, alternative argument or any obstruction by the people who actually know what you have to do to mount a defense.
Yeah, I'm reaching out to some attorneys who I know and respect, just to ask them who are in the know, who are in LA, just to get their take. But you see here, West Coast Magic adamant that it is not the money. Listen, if you just look at this photo, a photo says 1,000 words, right? And this does not look like a guy who's going to be easy to deal with in any way whatsoever. I think he's going to be very difficult to deal with. And I hate to say it, but he might be riding an odd high. Look, I'm the son of a psychiatrist, so I always look at things through a psychological lens, and my mother's a licensed therapist. And one of the things I think this guy is dealing with, and this is my own theory, was being, was not living up to both his grandfather and his father's fame, not having any sort of wherewithal to get there, not having the talent that they had. And his one way of getting that attention was to act out and commit this hideous crime. Now this guy's in the headlines every day, whether he intended for that or not. I think on some subconscious level, that is true. And the reason I bring that up is now I think maybe he wants to run the show with the attorneys, and that's not going to happen with a guy like Alan Jackson. He's got to run the show. He wants to run the show, and if Nick Reiner is sort of blocking him at every step and saying, no, I'm the boss, then that's the issue. Now, if it's money, that's also understandable. And maybe someone's saying maybe there could be a conflict. Maybe there's something that came up in recent days through the trust that a trust attorney found that would prohibit him, meaning Nick Reiner, prohibit Nick Reiner from paying Alan Jackson. We just don't know. But what we do know,
we don't even know if there's a trust. We're guessing maybe there was one.
Exactly.
Well, as I said, certainly the behaviors those behaviors that we know of or think we know of with regard to how he interacted with his family would certainly support the idea that he had to be in control and had to be his way or the highway. There are tapes of him saying in one of the facilities he was in, they wouldn't give him meds that he thought he was entitled to, and he threw a rock through a window in order to persuade them that he needed it. There are other tapes in which he says, he decided to live on the street because he didn't want to have to kowtow to anybody else's view of how he should be living. There are tapes where he says he knows better and that he needed to take low-level drugs in order to stay off drugs. And the fact that he, relapsed several times, I say, he didn't say this, had no impact on it. So, I mean, it's a pretty good guess that he wouldn't be the easiest client to try to deal with that background. And I don't think it would be just Alan Jackson. I mean, any lawyer trying to represent a client who is saying, I will not let you do in my defense what you think has to be done in my defense, period, can't represent that client. That's why Sarah Boone lost so many of those lawyers.
Yeah.
That's why in Sarah Boone's trial, the judge finally said to her, you're going to have to represent yourself, because if that's what you want to do, there's going to be no lawyer that's going to be able to come on and do it for you. They can't ethically, they can't professionally represent yourself. That's when she sent out that advertisement, because she decided she couldn't represent herself, and she at least ameliorated her behavior a little to allow the defense lawyers to come on, to have some ability to control the contours of that defense.
Now the Reiner family has put out a statement. Thank you, Joe. And it is short and to the point. And we quote here from the COE, from the Reiner family, have the utmost trust in the legal process and will not comment further on matters related to the legal proceedings. So that is clearly being done by someone handling the PR process.
And I have another thought about this. If someone in the family or close to the family had reached out and they were prepared to pay a really high profile, very experienced, very capable lawyer to represent him, and then that lawyer says he's impossible to deal with, which I think, Joel, the more I think about it, the more I think you were right initially, then it may be that the family is saying, okay, now you go on your own. We were willing to do it. We found you the best lawyer that we think was possible, and you're saying you know better?
Yeah. I've said this before. I think the reason this case is the magnitude that it is, you're looking at an absolute icon in comedy in Rob Reiner. You're looking at his wife, who's a famous photographer and producer. The grandfather, Carl Reiner, is arguably a much bigger legend than his son, Rob Reiner. Then you've got these kids. And if you look at this photo, you see a portrait of three kids. At one point, Jake Reiner was a news reporter and went into acting. Handsome guy, jovial looking. Romy looks a little sad in that photo. And then you look at Nick Reiner, and he's sort of the misfit in this family. And it has everything. It's got the celebrity. It has the drug angle. It has potentially the mental health issue. It happened right where, very close proximity to the O.J. Simpson murders in the heart of Los Angeles. It's the perfect storm for a huge media story. But at the center of it are these people. And if you look at this photo, really the two who only have each other now are Romy and Jake. And it's just really sad. I harp on this a lot because I think I have my own sense of guilt for covering true crime, because we lose, you lose the
Look at the
reality
way
of
that
what.
photo is. I'm not a, behavioral person or whatever, but everybody's, well, three of them are sort of smiling.
Yeah.
Nick is the one who looks miserable. His sister is leaning away from him in that photo.
Yeah. And they say that she's had her own issues with being down. And I think maybe some of it, I have no idea specifically, but you would assume that maybe having a troubled brother is a reason. And she seems to be an empathetic creature. But the point I'm making is it's just a tragic family situation. And true crime is exactly that. It's true. Today, Romy and Jake are sitting at home, blindsided basically by the by the news with Alan Jackson, because we heard, and I'll get to that in a minute, that they're just finding out themselves this morning. So they're learning things from the media. And the bottom line point of what I am trying to say here is that it's just tragic all around. But these are real people, whether they're celebrities or not, with real life issues. And they just got a whole lot harder for Romy and Jake. But Ricardo Garcia, he's the public defender. And I did not catch the female, apologies, the woman public defender. But he came out, Ricardo Garcia, who's now the new public defender. And he said, we're incredibly sorry for the Reiner family. And then underscored it, saying our hearts go out to the Reiner family. We ask for your patience as we navigate this legal process. And he says, Ricardo Garcia does, that we learned just last night that we were being substituted in as Nick Reiner's attorneys. The woman said, we only spoke to Nick for 30 seconds today. And then she went on and said, the family was not even aware of this until this morning. I mean, Joe, how jolting is this for the Reiner family? What's left of it, which is devastating to say that. But
it has to be, but that also does support the idea that it isn't the money that led to where we are. Because presumably somebody in the family would have to know about the money. And if they didn't know until this morning that this was going to happen, it doesn't appear to be that it's a withdrawal of the money that caused it. It's terrible for them. But I mean, if you think about all the years that this was going on, it had to be just awful. He's in and out of rehab. He's trashing the guest house on the property. He's apparently has violent episodes when he has drugs. There's one story that, I mean, I can't vouch for whether it's true or not, but it's been reported a couple of places where Rob Reiner had to grab him and hold him for hours and hours and hours as he came down from a drug high or a drug low or a drug whatever it would be. And you're living with that every day. You're living it as the kids, watching your parents go through what had to be miserable for them, trying to do something for one of their children, somebody they love, something they want the best for, and they're unable to find something that works for him. You mean, Joe, you're a father. That has to be the worst. I think in some ways that may be even worse than losing a child. Having a child really go through that sort of trauma and misery, and it's day after day after day, and they've got all the money in the world and all the goodwill and all the want to help him, and they can't do it. And the kids are there watching it. I mean, this tragedy, losing parents and the way they were killed, is really, there's no equivalent to it. But it isn't as though there weren't years of really terrible life experiences leading up to it. It's just really sad.
It really is. Karm just reminded me, 'cause she always likes to cheer me up, the famous saying that a parent is only as happy as his least happy child. You can only, because you feel for your kids so much. And if you think about what it takes just to have a healthy child born, physically healthy, and then what it takes for a mentally healthy child, and then you think of what it takes for a mentally healthy child in a world where everyone's addicted to tablets, including my children, which I'm going to rip out of their hands because my 6-year-old was being a pain in the what last night. But it's hard. It's hard. It's really hard. And I think
it really is hard. And it's not, somebody in the chat just said, I mean, their attention, Rob and Melissa's attention had to be so much focused on Nick, that the other kids, you know, they don't get their fair share. You know, you can talk about fair share, but it has to be that there isn't, you know, a lot of emotional energy and time left for the other two. And I assume, I mean, if I try to put myself in that position, I would feel terrible for my parents. I would worry about my brother. And I also would feel a little resentful that all this is going on and it's taking their time and their attention away from me and the times that we could have together.
Yeah. The last person to speak today was Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman. He said, I have 3 points. He's always very well spoken and very sort of deliberate, like an attorney would be. He says, I have 3 points. Number one, in our criminal justice system, every defendant has the right to an attorney. They are entitled to that. And he's going to make sure that that happens with Nick Reiner. And that's why a public defender has already been assigned. Secondly, Nathan Hochman said, in the process of dealing with that lawyer, our office, the DA's office, will make sure that his attorney, Nick Reiner's attorney, will get all the facts to effectively represent the client. In other words, will get all of the discovery in a timely fashion. And then in his last point, we are fully confident a jury will convict beyond a reasonable doubt guilty of murder as it relates to Nick Reiner. Again, Joe, to me, that was both fascinating and a little odd that the district attorney and the now former criminal defense attorney each predicted the outcome of the trial before a phalanx of cameras there outside the Superior Courthouse in Los Angeles. I mean, was that weird to you?
Yeah. Before I say anything about that, Justine, and I didn't get the rest of her name, said she'd been in that situation with a child and losing him would be worse. And I agree. I didn't mean to suggest that that losing him would be worse, just that it's not as though losing him is the capstone of what otherwise was a really wonderful, you know, life. It had to be so hard for them. Yeah, you know, once the defense lawyer says that publicly, I think it's pretty hard for the prosecutor not to say that publicly. And in a sense, what he's saying is what we know. They wouldn't pursue that prosecution if they did not believe that they were going to prevail beyond a reasonable doubt on the charges. Because if they didn't believe that they could prevail beyond a reasonable doubt on the charges, they shouldn't be bringing the charges.
Joe Patuto, there were 2 questions earlier. We'll answer these, and then we're going to flip over to the Corey Richins preliminary hearing that's going on simultaneously. COE, can you just pop in before I get to these questions and let me know, when I'm done here in a moment, do I end stream? I never know what to do, and I'm panicked, and I don't want to hit the wrong button. So just let me know. These are obviously pictures of the Reiners here at the White House. Of course, Rob Reiner, not to get political, but I think we all know, very liberal, a Democrat, and I'm sure they've been invited to the White House many times. And we've even had Jeff Wenninger on, a retired lieutenant within the LAPD. You end the stream, Joel, you exit, and you log on to the other stream. Thank you, COE. We had Jeff Wenninger, who did protectee detail as part of the LAPD with the Secret Service, because Rob Reiner would have a lot of Democrat fundraisers at his house. So that was a photo from the White House. But there were 2 questions, Joe Patuto. Number one, and a great question, how do you get an impartial jury? Los Angeles is a big county, huge county, second biggest, I think, after New York City. But they'll be able to seat a jury. I mean, there's enough people, I think, in Los Angeles that just don't care or are taking care of their own lives and busy with their own lives. But will it be hard or impossible to seat an impartial jury here in Los Angeles?
It's going to be hard because it's gotten such high publicity. And not only is it a high publicity case, you know, Los Angeles has other very high publicity cases, you know, the Menendez brothers, for an example. But it's also, the victims are very, very high profile people. Rob Reiner's movies are shown. The TV show that he was on is still, I think, in reruns. So it's high profile for a reason independent of the crime, which means that the publicity is going to be there. But sitting an impartial jury doesn't mean you have to sit people who've never heard of the case. You have to sit people who can say, we have not formed an impression of guilt, and we're willing to hear the evidence and decide based on what you tell us during the trial. And you've heard jurors who've allowed themselves to be interviewed in other cases, and Joel, you've interviewed 3 or 4 of them over time, who say, I took this really seriously, and I took an oath that I was going to listen to what I learned at the trial and evaluate it there, and that's what I did. That's what we expect of jurors. That's what the system expects of jurors. And I think that's what jurors do, a large part of the time. Do they do it always? No, but nobody does everything perfectly always. No system can be perfect. But I think, having lay people be presented with a case with their own life experiences is probably the best system you can have when you're going to look at, taking away somebody's freedom for a long period of time.
Yeah, well said. Shanta says lots of people don't pay attention to celebrities in California, millions in LA, no problem. Who does? Space Coast. He reads OK Magazine, People Magazine. I'm joking. Space Coast couldn't care less about celebrities, but he does a good job bringing us the press conferences. One final question that came up earlier, Joe Patuto. In chambers, was Alan Jackson required to give the judge a specific reason as to why he was stepping down? Like he did, obviously not to the public.
Yeah, no, he can't breach attorney-client privilege, but he can say enough. It's almost code to be able to give information that's needed for the judge to decide. And he can say, our relationship just didn't gel. That doesn't really convey anything. And the judge is going to give a lot of credence to a licensed lawyer, about whom there's no whiff of you skate too close to the line, you're unethical or whatever. And if that lawyer says there are reasons why I cannot mount an effective defense, the judge is going to give a lot of credence to that. He's not going to argue with it, and he's not going to ask for, give me chapter and verse why it isn't working.
Once again, the biggest headline out of Nick Reiner's arraignment today is Alan Jackson has officially stepped down as his criminal defense attorney, and the arraignment has been continued to February 23rd. We're now going to redirect you to Corey Richins' preliminary hearing, and tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, Phil and Scott on the Tepe murders out of Columbus, Ohio. The busy day continues here at STS. Prof Joe Explains has her own YouTube channel. Prof, thank you so much for being here. COE Space Coast, Steve Cohen, the mods. Can't do it without all of us together. Love you all. We'll see you on the flip side. I'll see you in just a minute at Corey Richins. And Joe, thanks again.